DeCat, the co-chairs of this committee. And by order, extended order actually, of the City of New York and the mayor, we are holding this meeting over Zoom. And we go month to month with that. So I guess we have a actually our last few agendas have been pretty full. And this month is no exception. So I would like to get right into it because we do have updates on a few parks. We have visitors from the Manhattan Borough President's Office, and then we as a committee have to discuss the letter, or at least points and draft of a letter we're going to send regarding the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and their proposal, or at least their designated proposal for coastal resiliency for the City of New York, but specifically for our district. There was one more point I was going to make, but I guess I can save that. I guess we can start off with the Manhattan Borough President's Office. And I do want to say, I know we have a bunch of people who are watching. So as we go to each point of the agenda, each item of the agenda, and the committee speaks, we will then open it up to the public. So we will let you know to raise your hands, and then anyone who wants to speak on one of the topics that is the current agenda item can. So we will do that as we go in order. But right now, I would love, who do we have from the Borough President's Office who is going to speak on the Million More Trees incentive?
Hello, everyone. Good evening. That would be Keisha Smith and Hannah Empel.
Keisha, take it away. You are our opening act tonight.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor. Thank you all so very much for so graciously hosting us this evening. I'm Keisha Smith. I'm with the Manhattan Borough President's Office. I am our Director of Strategic Initiatives and Organizing. And I'm here with Hannah Empel of the Nature Conservancy. She's the program analyst in the New York City division. And we are here this evening to talk to you guys about trees. And I'm so sorry, I'm here with one of our youngest members of Team Levine. That's my daughter. She loves to hop on Zoom when I'm on Zoom.
We're gonna have to apologize for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we're here this evening to chat with you all about trees, our Million More Trees initiative, which is a joint effort on behalf of our office and the 4 other borough presidents. And Hannah is here with us this evening, and she'll be leading the presentation to chat about trees, and she's serving as a technical expert. The Nature Conservancy has been an amazing partner to our office and all of the BPs, at large in this effort. So I'll just pass the baton over to Hannah, so that way she can jump right into the presentation, and then, I'll stick around in hopes to answer some questions when she wraps up.
Thank you, Keisha. And hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Empel. I'm a program analyst at the Nature Conservancy in New York, as Keisha shared, and really appreciate this opportunity to address your committee. It's a pleasure to be with the Community Board 4 this evening. So I'm going to go through a presentation. If it's okay, I'm going to share my screen so I can share you some slides. One thing before I get started, I do want to check and see if people have had an opportunity to review the Community Board resolution on the Million More Trees initiative. Oh, I see our little friends there. So cute. And if not, that's something that we can provide, after the meeting if anyone hasn't had an opportunity to review that document. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share. All right. Can everyone see the slides and still hear me? Let me know if that changes. All right, so really here today to do a little bit of context setting about, where we are with our urban forest in New York City and some of the big picture vision that, people like Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, as well as many in the community, people working at the community board level, various nonprofit organizations, for-profit partners, all sorts of different entities have really contributed to. So I will get through this. The Nature Conservancy overall, our mission is to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends. We actually work in over 70 countries now. And I'm really here today to talk about the importance of our trees as a tool to mitigate climate change. We know that trees are actually a very simple yet effective tool, and we are really here to encourage support for this Million More Trees campaign that all 5 of the borough presidents are in support of. And again, we can talk more about the draft resolution and what that could look like for your community. It's a fully customizable document, and we really solicit and welcome feedback, edits, input on how that's going to look. This is really one of the most pressing issues of our time. Everyone knows that climate change is giving rise to more heat, more serious flooding, a variety of other serious threats to human health. And so I'm very glad to be here on behalf of what we call our Future Forest NYC initiative within the Nature Conservancy. We are working really hard to protect, maintain, and grow our urban forest, which we define as including all 7 million of the trees that grow across all 5 of our boroughs. That includes all types of land, so private and public land, parks, those little pockets of forests you can find throughout the city, as well as people's backyards for, our neighbors in Staten Island or parts of Brooklyn, depending on where people are living. So really a wide array of things. And we really want to do this work in a just and equitable way that's community informed and gives people an option to, have a real say in what their communities and neighborhoods look like. So we take a science-based approach. We are a science-based organization. And really want to have an effective, strategy around data on this topic. So, New York City does experience profound urban heat island effect. You can see these 2 maps are kind of like inverses of each other. On the left, we have the vegetation cover. You can see these little pockets of green really stand out. Those are our, city's pride and joy, the huge parks. And then we'll get to a zoom in a moment, but you can really see that correlation that the heat, the surface temperature is much higher in places that do not have as much vegetation. And just to be clear, this map, the purple, the kind of dark purple is actually the cooler places. So, Central Park is really standing out there on the big citywide map. And we also want to talk about the racial and social equity implications of all of this. So, people of color, and in particular Black New Yorkers, are actually much more likely to die of heat-related illness during the summer compared to their white neighbors. And so we really want to be mindful of that when we tackle various solutions. So again, we're talking about all 7 million of these wonderful trees. And just to, cover some of the important benefits of our urban forest. This slide has a lot packed into it, and these can be made available, for your review after as well. But trees are really our environment's powerhouse. They clean the air. They actually are well documented to reduce people's stress, promoting a sense of community, encouraging play and recreation for kids and adults alike. And so really one of our organizational focuses, and that I'm sure is a goal shared by many here, is to really increase our tree canopy overall. So this map is showing the tree canopy across the city. And when we're talking about canopy, we're literally talking about the shade that's provided by the trees. So, if you've got a tree lined block and they're really big mature trees, they're connecting in the middle, and that's, a fully covered, 100% canopy or close to it, versus a block with no trees, that's not going to have any at all. So our team has been tracking this over time. The most recent year we have the data for this, it's actually remote sense data, is 2017. So that's what you're looking at here. And we are also looking at it over time. So this is looking at 2010 to 2017. Areas that have actually lost tree canopy during that time include a lot of our coastal areas. A lot of that can be attributed to major storms like Superstorm Sandy and other major weather or climate events. And again, our team is always looking for ways to, use science to help communities make good decisions about, what's happening in their neighborhood. So what we have developed is an analysis that we call, I'm sorry, and I'll pause here to let you digest the Manhattan. So this is the 2017 cover. You can see, maybe this is not surprising given everyone is obviously familiar with the neighborhood you're in. There's a lot of, busy, dense things happening. There's of course some incredible, natural assets and parks and other resources, but, compared to the borough overall, a little bit on the lower side for canopy cover. And what we want to do is to figure out where could new trees go. And what I really want to emphasize is when we talk about practical canopy, we're really talking about where could trees go. We're not dictating that they should go there. And I want to be very clear about that. We see these maps as really tools of figuring out, how to start a conversation on this. And we also, because we're mindful of equity, we know that sometimes where opportunity presents itself is not actually going to further an equity goal. So it might be easy to, march into the middle of Central Park and start planting trees in, one of their lawns. That's not going to, improve the equity for, people in the neighborhood surrounding the park. So we are, excuse me, we're, again, not relying just on existing opportunities because we don't want to perpetuate inequities. We want to work with communities to figure out, where would this work? Where would it be both practical and desirable? That's really the emphasis. We also work a lot to address some of the threats that our urban forests face. And actually one of them is really around this issue of lack of funding and management and, the need for really robust support for our urban forest. Our NYC Parks colleagues I know are here tonight, and they're, doing incredible work, but their budget remains less than, 0.34%. This is the kind of average over a few fiscal years, but a really tiny fraction of the city's overall budget. And so we believe that, an increase in support for our, particularly the forestry part of that would really go a long way, given that a substantial portion of the trees in New York City on streets and in parks are, managed by our city parks department. Again, I mentioned that sort of need for funding, but in addition, climate change is a threat. There are various pests. Everyone probably stomped, hopefully, on a spotted lanternfly over the summer, and we'll do so again this summer. Management across, different jurisdictions. There's really not a lot of cohesive management of those private property trees. So we really need to protect the trees that we have, maintain them, and find opportunities to develop that cohesive vision for where new ones could go. So that brings me to Forest for All NYC, which is a growing coalition of currently 80 organizations and counting. The Nature Conservancy in New York is the kind of leading founding member, and at this point we are welcoming organizations to join us in our endeavor. So if you are in other parts of your life part of a business, an organization, a nonprofit that might be interested in joining, you can please feel free to contact me about this. And this is kind of our vision. It's a lot of similar things that I've been talking about, but again, like really looking at an equitably distributed urban forest that really acknowledges these access issues to green space and the benefits that our trees can provide. Here is the always being updated membership list. If there's an organization that you think should maybe be on here and you don't see it on this list, I would certainly welcome hearing about that. And again, the benefits of working on this, the kind of drivers that we organize our work around, we really see, this is like cross-borough work, that there's, it's incredible that all 5 of the borough presidents see the value in this is really important. We want to be mindful of, as I said, equity, and EJ here is referring to environmental justice communities. That's a really important part of our work, and really making sure we're well coordinated with all of our partners. This is the New York City Urban Forest Agenda, and at the end I can put a couple of links into the, I don't know if there's a chat feature, but at any rate, we can distribute that information through the appropriate channels. But this is kind of our grounding document that helps us. We've set out, 12 different strategies and kind of organized them into different themes with the goal of achieving, at least 30% canopy cover by 2035, which was a goal that was picked to be both very ambitious, but also achievable. And, again, communities have different roles to play in getting to that point. So again, how to get involved. We have this community board resolution that I've mentioned a couple times. We would love your support, and considering, passing a number of other community boards have already done this. And so we could, share examples. And you can, contact us, either through email or, by visiting forestforall.nyc to learn more about our agenda. We're also on social media. And these are just kind of resources. So I'll close there. I can share my email. I think, I'm not sure if it's on this. Yeah, it's on this last slide. So perfect. Again, I really appreciate this opportunity to be with you all, and I certainly welcome any questions. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Hannah. You're not going to get any argument from us about more trees, but I'm sure the devil is in the details, as you know. So I'm going to go to the committee first, if that's okay. And I see
Yes, please.
Christopher already has his hand up. Christopher, go ahead.
I'll actually yield just in case any of the co-chairs have questions first.
We do, but go, well, I do, but go ahead. I want, you go first. I'll bring up the rear.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It was something that I know I was working at in Brooklyn back in 2019. So I appreciate that it's a citywide effort. Around 2019, 2020, I had requested from the previous administration in Council District 3 to look into rain runoff opportunities for smaller trees, because we know that mature trees take about 20 years to absorb any CO2s that would affect the emissions situation that we're dealing with now. How much is that a part of your project as well? Specifically citing runoff spaces for, greenery that would help out in this process, or at least like build into your stats, your KPI, which is another 1 million trees.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think there's two answers, because there's the, what we might say on our end, and then there's what you all can say as a community board if you want to pass this resolution and you think that's particularly an important thing to note. Again, like as Leslie said, the devil's in the details. You can make this resolution as toothy as you want it to be. So if that's something that you see as a community need, if there's parts of the neighborhood that are really dealing with a lot of flooding and you think, yes, a tree could go in here, but it should be accompanied by this, resource, then I would say, go for it, put that in there. And the other answer is yes, absolutely. It depends on the situation, the context. So I think probably what you're referring to would work best for street trees. I can get you a little more detail or information on that via email in terms of like the specifics. But I think in general, yes, it's an absolutely great idea to figure out a way to make sure that the tree bed itself is doing more than just housing the tree.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean that goes into technical engineering, but whether or not those rain runoffs would count as a 1 million tree opportunity, that was the other question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that would count towards in the sense of if it's not a physical tree.
Well, no, if there's exactly. If it's
right,
Okay. And then lastly, so MCB4 obviously has the lowest park space and green space per capita in all of New York City. What are you looking, are outside of Harlem, East Harlem, Inwood, South Bronx, Brownsville, places where there are large NYCHA campuses, would you consider Hell's Kitchen a high opportunity space to provide more trees, specifically on the avenues and on the streets, given that we have tenement buildings?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I'm thinking back to the slide on the, practical canopy for, your district. And I recall it being on the lower end in terms of like what is possible. And I think it does speak to that issue that you're describing of like the amount of density there. I think another place to think about and be creative is like institutions of higher education that have, small but, meaningful campuses. Are there opportunities there to carve out space?
Our public schools, John Jay College, for instance, things of that nature.
That's a great example. Hospitals are another, type of entity or partner that they sometimes have land where they have.
We don't have any in our district.
So, there's
we have Mount Sinai.
Just in the north.
Right.
Yeah, those are just examples. I think, the street tree option, I think that would be like a block by block conversation, right? There are probably trees that are, damaged, not in very good shape. There's maybe some work to be done there. But again, this is where your context and your community knowledge comes in. We're not dictating, oh, we think a tree should go here or here. We're sort of saying, like, on the whole, here's what we're seeing. Most people are in agreement, more trees would be nice, but how do we get there? So, I think that kind of local knowledge, like, you might have a better, answer than the one I can provide. I don't know if I should go ahead and call on people, but
I got it. It's okay. I got it.
Questions. Yeah.
Christopher, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. It's like a block or two north. Thank you. Marty, do you want to go, or do you want to have the committee go first, or?
Let the committee go first. It's fine.
Great.
Because they may answer the question that I have. Go, Candace.
Yes. Hey, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I didn't know what we were really getting into. But my question is, how many trees would you consider like in an area for an urban forest? Like, how many trees in it? What is the square footage? How many on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually the answer in this context is 1, right? So like, because we're considering this as like a big system, every individual tree contributes to that overall number and the overall tree canopy cover, and has, we believe, value. So, in a dense place, like especially the part of Manhattan that you're all in, that counts. And, maybe people have been following the story of this, rare bird that's escaped from the Central Park Zoo and is like, making its home in various trees all around. Like, any individual tree can become habitat for wildlife. It can be a place where somebody takes a quick break on the sidewalk on a hot summer day. So really a forest of one is what we're.
Forest of one. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess, because just thinking about like areas that are in our area, we do have larger buildings. It's just that take up the whole block. Would you, I'm thinking maybe instead of bollards, we have trees. Is that something we can go on that route with these?
That's a great question, and I love that idea. I don't actually know the answer. It probably is a very complicated one that probably New York City Parks and maybe Department of Buildings would have to answer. Probably there's regulations about that I'm not familiar with, but I think that's a really creative idea, and I actually love that. So I can look into it, and if there's a way to exchange contact information, I can follow up with you.
Okay. Yeah, because one area that we're actually going to talk about, the Chelsea Park, if you walk down that street, it has, I don't know how many trees. I after like 10, I stopped counting and I wasn't even halfway down the block. So I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is an urban forest. Like, that's what I consider as my urban. We have a tall building, but we have trees on both sides, at least I would say between 15 and 30. So
that's fantastic. And I'll just give a shout out to, I feel like the New York City Parks Department, forestry team is very thoughtful about this. They do a lot of work that goes into figuring out what is the right tree for every location. So if it is a street that has a giant skyscraper, it's not going to get a lot of light. They'll pick the right tree for that location so it can actually thrive in that spot. So
no, thank you.
Yeah.
David?
Thanks for the great presentation, Hannah. Have you given any thought to space that isn't on the street, but kind of in the center of blocks? The current zoning, for the most part, requires a 30-foot rear yard. And in Chelsea, especially in the historic district, we have a lot of row houses that have even larger rear yards. And I'm on the Chelsea Land Use Committee, where we're constantly dealing with owners of row houses who want to expand into that donut hole space, as we call it, the green space at the center of the block. And of course, that has an impact on sustainability, urban heat island, and space where trees could be grown. Have you thought about any ways of incentivizing private owners to plant trees in that interior block space?
Oh, that is such a good question. And you're touching on something that is really tricky about this issue, which is the need for options for private, property. We need to figure this out. There currently really isn't a great mechanism in place, and it's definitely something that our team is researching. what would people find acceptable? Again, people don't want to be told, oh, you have to do X, Y, or Z with your space. So I think it's a fantastic idea, and
I was thinking of something almost more like a tax credit where it wouldn't be a penalty, but a carrot.
I hope the Manhattan Borough President Office team is listening to that idea, because I love it. And I'm sure it's been kicked around. So
Okay, thank you.
we are hearing you.
Thank
I
you,
see
David.
one more hand, and then I'm
Brad?
sure we want to get on to other business.
Yeah,
Brad.
thank you, Chair. I was thinking along the lines of what David just said, but it's more of, here's the tree, we're giving it to you, besides tax credit. Also, in Chicago, in the 90s, the Mayor Daley mandated all the public buildings had to have green roofs. And we have all these tops of schools, we have all these public buildings, we've got NYCHA, we've got nothing but room on top. And I think that should be part of the program. Also, like on 14th Street, like David said, I'm on the bid district there, and they want to take 14th and, like Park Avenue, put trees down the middle because it's so wide. Stuff like that we can look into. I also think we always forget we're on an island. We are surrounded by water. We do not use our waterfront. It'd be great to have big barges filled with dirt and trees, and they could be maintained and moved around if they need to. But we could have a whole green island right off our water in a very inexpensive way. And I just think we don't utilize that whatsoever. So I'd like you to be thinking big picture. And I know Manhattan Borough President is putting together a new, what are they calling it, Leslie? A new board for water.
A waterfront agency, oversight agency
yes,
that they proposed.
So Hannah, I think that's something you should talk to them about too. Thank you.
Awesome. Those are great suggestions.
Brad.
Again,
Great
Um,
suggestions, Brad.
Yeah, was that a urban river forest that you just proposed?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I mean, we could knock up barges together and they could just be filled with forest. We're missing it. We are missing it. It drives me crazy.
Thank you, Brad. Marty, if you don't have anything, I have a few questions, and then we'll go to the public. I see a bunch of hands up.
So I'll go before you, and you'll fill in the holes. I think the previous city council person, I don't know whether Eric's office has this, had a list of places where street trees could and would be going, and they were or are in the process over time of putting those trees in place. I would like that list to become part of this conversation, and I would like to know more about where the activity for putting in the street trees stands. I think it's ongoing. I know Parks plays an important role in that, as you indicated when you shouted them out. Not only in the maintenance of trees and the taking down of trees that should be taken down, but the planting of new trees. That's my first comment. The second comment is about public-private locations for trees, and that's already been discussed, but I don't think we should lose that. The donut hole, the heat islands that we've been talking about, barges in the middle of the street with trees, Brad, that would be fabulous. My third comment is about funding. Where is the funding for this? What does it stand? What kind of money are we talking about to get trees planted all over our city? And finally, a question I have is, the Bronx River Alliance one of your supporters?
so I'll answer that last one first because it's a yes, and they're actually a relatively new member. We're very glad to have them.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, they do incredible work, so it's
Yes,
great
they
for
do.
our coalition to have them involved.
I'm on the board of the Bronx River Alliance, but I'll praise them anyway. They do fabulous work.
Well, thank you for your service in that respect. And then your question around funding is definitely a tricky one because there, again, we're talking about trees across different land types. And so the costs associated with these projects vary greatly. One of our coalition members, for example, the New York Restoration Project does every year like an annual tree giveaway. And they're giving away trees that you could carry home. You know, they're in a several gallon bucket. You could, you know, bring it if you have one of these, you know, small pocket yards, you know, you would be able to do this yourself. The City of New York Parks Department, they are planting, you know, several year old saplings that require, you know, an entire crew. Things have to be excavated out. You know, there's soil being brought in, there's heavy machinery. So the costs associated with that are very different. So I think we could, you know, definitely get some, you know, more concrete, you know, numbers and estimates. I don't want to throw out a number, you know, right now, you know, for exactly what 1 million more trees would cost because of these different contexts. But I think it does require more support for, you know, our city parks agency to be able to do the work and, you know, many of the land types and then other creative solutions too.
We definitely want to see your template, by the way.
Happy to share.
Marty, though, I think you were asking, though, what is the budget? Is it $200 million? I understand things, you know, everything's high and low. I think that was your question. And we're about to get congestion pricing. And the big thing they push on congestion pricing is the environmental impact, which I don't really believe. But why is all the money going to the MTA, where a big part of it should be going to CB4 and the neighborhoods that are there, and some of that dollars should be going to the Greenway. I you know, nobody says that, but it's meanwhile everything's going to go to a train. But meanwhile, they're stating why they're getting this money and their mismanagement, but we're not getting a dollar for a tree. So I think it's something we should put in our letter if we are going to do it.
And that should be borough president's office and the local council person's office and whatever other sources that Hannah hasn't identified for us.
Why aren't there trees in the subway?
Right. Why don't we get to
There
Carl?
should be planter
And then
boxes down there,
we
Marty.
if we're going to do a letter, we can go over the points. Carl, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. So curious about making sure that these trees stay long term once they're planted. You know, Marty referenced the previous council member's effort to plant trees in available spots in our district, which I worked there at the time. And one of the challenges was we would put something in, and then another one we had planted a little while ago had died shortly after. So I'm just curious about if there's some rethinking of the long-term maintenance of this, so that, you know, the effort or you know, isn't lost, and that there's a long-term, that these, you know, stay for the long term and where they're looking to be placed.
Yeah, I think a lot of people share that concern, Carl. So I think this is one of the learnings from the original Million Trees initiative, is that maintenance does go a long way and is very important. And I think the, you know, strategies are basically twofold. There's, you know, again, what our city parks department can handle and kind of having a schedule for them to be doing, like, you know, the heavy lifting, the pruning, like if there are like branches that are fully damaged, that needs to be handled by, you know, the professional crews. But then on the civic side, you know, average people can really play a very strong role in supporting the urban forest through, you know, watering, weeding. You know, people can ask for or, you know, fund themselves for the tree guards, you know, that go around the beds. Those discourage, you know, people from trampling on, or, you know, dogs from, you know, doing their business there. All those kinds of things can actually really make a big difference. And a lot of our coalition members are involved in that kind of like stewardship work. They really bring people in. So I think that it's like the big picture, right, is like, yes, the big funding, and then also making sure that people feel invested in the new trees that come, you know, hopefully to their block or wherever.
Yeah, because I think it's for 2 years, a new tree gets taken care of by the people that plant it, but afterwards it becomes the property owner's responsibility in front of, and you know, some are better than others. And you know, that's a real challenge to have those in long term. So just thinking about that and how to do that's going to be a real challenge. And I don't know the answer.
funding for maintenance.
And I haven't heard any numbers about funding.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you because I don't want to throw out a number around this, just given the layeredness of this. And, you know, we're talking about 1 million more trees across 5 boroughs. And so again, between parks in one place, backyards in another, street trees, it's hard to come up with a unified figure. And I know that's something you want. So I don't want to misstate it. And I can work with the team to get you that.
Thank you, Hannah. I have a few questions myself. I understand that you are, you know, this is a citywide effort, and that's what kind of your presentation is. So I want to boil it down to our district, because any letter or resolution, well, we don't do resolutions, but any letter would be specific to our district. So I have a bunch of questions. So you mentioned a few things, but who in the end determines where these trees are going? Like how is that going to be determined? Who gets what piece of what tree pie?
Great question. It again depends on the choice of you know, what type of landform it is. So, you know, right now, like if we made no changes, any individual can go on, you know, 311 and request a street tree for a location that they see in front of their home address, for example. There is a wait time associated with that. There are also, you know, private nonprofit organizations that are always, you know, putting in trees and kind of working with different partners. So that's, you know, one path. You know, if people have access to, you know, council member discretionary funding, things like that, you know, those are different options.
So this isn't, so this project is not going to come with like a board or anything. This is just kind of like, you're just providing the trees and it's going to be the regular 311s or community. I was under the impression that this project will be an actual, like you put in an application to this separate 1 million tree project. And then there are determining factors, but that's not going to be the case.
You know, that's a really good question. I actually don't know if Keisha, if you want to jump back in with some of these details. I know that some of this is still being worked out. So partly what these letters are designed to do is really show that there's community board support for doing it. And then we can all kind of collectively come up with the details. And I think, again, like putting in those district specific requests or pieces that you think are really important, like that you want to have a, you know, process that's, you know, democratically, you know, that community boards can be involved in making these decisions. You know, those are the types of things that this letter is, you know, customizable in that way. So I hope that's not too roundabout, but.
No, definitely. I mean, obviously, if you're going to go, listen, if you're going to go on a WPE meeting, environmental committee meeting, we're all going to say yes to more trees. But we want yes to trees in our district where they make sense, right? If you bring up, it was interesting, if you bring up slide 5, you talked a lot about they'll be equitably distributed, environmental justice, you know, lower economic areas. But if you look at the map that you showed, what is traditionally the lower economic areas are the ones that have the most greenery right now, have the most trees. So I don't know if what is the determining factor, right? Because then if you look at our district, we have, as Christopher was saying, probably the least amount. So, you know, I didn't know where that balance was going to be. I think, I don't know if that was it. Maybe that's
the one or.
I think there was another one. Maybe it wasn't 5. I'm sorry. There was another one.
No, that's okay.
It showed like here. Okay. The tree canopy and the greens, and then that's another one. If you look at 4, which is us, it's definitely contrast to 7, 9, 10. And I'm trying to think of what could be added. I'm sorry. There was one before of the green. If you go back one, I think it was. Maybe it was the one with the green. I thought it was the green was showing. But anyway, is there going to be you know what I mean? Like, because we're mostly residential, our district, right? Except for the ends of it, the east and very far west and east. So how, like, you know what I mean? I guess my roundabout question is, how do we kind of put our stake in the ground, no pun intended, of, you know, getting the trees that we desperately need because we have a dearth of them?
We should
hey,
go ahead and jump
yeah.
in.
So I am definitely happy to jump in here, and I know that it's probably going to sound like a broken clock, but essentially I'm going to echo what Hannah just mentioned, right? So our overall goal is that we know that this is a need. We recognize that it's a need, and the next step is garnering enough support so that we can actually push this agenda forward, right? So like we can't emphasize enough the importance of saying exactly that in a letter if you so choose, to support this effort and outlining all of those demands. As we've been going board to board, we've been asking them to do just that, right? Like every and anything that you feel that it's important to be able to get what you believe that your community needs, this is the place to do it. Like our goal is to push this forward. There's a lot that we just, sadly may not have the intricate details on. And our goal is also not necessarily to reinvent a wheel, right? Like we would like to add on to the work that's already being done. And I know that Hannah had alluded to that, previously, especially with the amazing work that Parks does, right? Like even when it comes to the funding question, this very well might need to be a federal ask, right? Like I'm not quite sure of the intricate details, but I do know, from the previous presentations that we've done, that there is some dollars that are earmarked for this federally, but that's also a partnership with our federal, like elected officials, right? But in order for us to be able to get to that place, we need to ensure that, the community that's directly impacted by this is letting us know this is the issue that we're having. This is what we've identified would help us fix it. And then we as an office, in conjunction with the Nature Conservancy, will do our best to ensure that we're pushing that forward. And I know that was, like a mouthful, but the reality is that a lot of it is that this is why we're here, right? We're asking you like, hey guys, we know that you care about this. Please put it in writing and let us know all of the things that you want to fix and change, so that we can then take that and try to make sure that we're ringing the alarm on it.
Okay, so that makes sense, because it's really a little bit like the Waterfront Oversight Agency. We have an idea, and if you like this idea, please support this idea. And then when we get down into it, there'll be more details coming down the road that we will, I guess, furnish our requests / ideas.
Right. And if I may, we're going, as I mentioned, board to board. So our goal is to garner unanimous support at the very least in the borough of Manhattan. And we're already starting our work in other boroughs, right? Like next week, Thursday, I'll be at the Bronx borough board, right? To just chat about this. And then we're going to do that work individually from board to board, because we would like to get that citywide support so that then we can start kind of fine tuning all of those details. So if you put that in writing, and while you guys were all, chatting, I was taking some notes. So that way I know what's important to you, and I can make sure that I'm flagging that for the borough president and for the team at the Nature Conservancy, so that we can ensure that we have some answers to those questions.
Okay, great. And I guess, did I miss this? I thought you said, are tree pits included in your idea or not included? I'm sorry. You said something tree pits and I think I missed it.
Did I maybe mention that, or?
No, I'm asking, do you envision tree pits are included when you put the trees in or not? I don't know if that's even been discussed, or just the trees, or is the pit separate?
Well, yeah, there's also, funding already exists for that. So as we mentioned before, this is going to be a collaborative effort throughout all levels, of local government. So we know that council members already, offer funding for that. So again, this is not to work against that, it's to work in conjunction with it. So we're hoping that all of it will be together in the proposed plan. Okay, great. I know our council member, Eric Botcher, also has a plan, and I know they have a group going around identifying spots for his, I think it was a separate, tree planting plan. But I'm guessing it could be in conjunction, but they might be sooner rather than later than this. But thank you so much. We have 4 people. Actually, you know what, Nellie, if you can bring over Jordan first, because he's representative, assembly member, council member Botcher's rep. So he will, I'm guessing, speak to this.
And then if you can also bring over Shelley Rosen, Christine Berthet, and Toby Crane, who also have their hands up from the public. And then,
Hi, Leslie. So I took, it's Janine now. I took
oh,
over.
hey, Janine.
Hey, I came back from my doctor's appointment, so I'm taking over.
Okay,
now,
great.
bringing everybody over.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And then once we hear from them, we can, I'm guessing we can talk about points to a letter as detailed or as not as we want to make it. Jordan, I'm guessing you want to comment on your initiative or efforts?
Yeah, I would love to comment on the council members' initiative and efforts. So the council member, first of all, good to see my fellow colleagues in city government from the Manhattan Borough President's office. Hi. I don't have a kid or a cat here with me today to show off, so it's just me, unfortunately. But yes, the council member has a big plan. We had a press conference, I believe, back in November of last year, getting 1,000 new street trees planted in the district. We're well on our way towards that goal. We got, I believe, a little over 100 last fall planting season, which is really more sort of a winter planting season, just because we had an unusually warm season. And then we should be seeing double that, hopefully, in the spring of this year, and then moving forward to get that done. As you said, Leslie, we do have a small army of interns that is going out and surveying the district in areas of where we want to get new trees planted, where we have empty tree pits, to focus on those. So it is something that we are working on. And just to talk more about the longevity of trees, I know a lot of people have often talked about, we are investing so much in planting these trees. We need to make sure that they are secured and maintained. Carl is correct. It's first 2 years, the contractor takes care of them, and then it's the property owner or the block association that might take care of it. I can't give too much away because it's not finalized yet, but our participatory budgeting ballot, we often have trees are a very popular project for us. We don't have more funding for trees because we already have that funding for the 1,000, but we do have a tree project that is in that vein. So I will be a little cryptic on that, but we should be finalizing the ballot and posting about it at some point, middle of this month or next month. But it's definitely something that we are cognizant of too.
Thank you, Jordan. Jordan, did you say that you guys have planted how many?
I think we've planted, I don't know the exact number. It's over 100 so far. And there, 900 more to go, 900 plus. We're not going to stop exactly at 1,000. So.
Okay, great. And is there any map of that? Like, can we get a map or?
I can see, I know the Parks Forestry team has sent me a list of proposed places. I can see if that is available for public consumption, and I can get that over to both you and Marty, of course.
Oh, that would be great.
Yep.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Did you bring over, Janine? I think it was Christine, and I see, Shelley, Shelley, Christine, and I think there's also Toby Crane.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring him over, but he's not allowing me, so I might just allow him to talk once you're ready.
Okay, Shelley, go ahead. I'll go in order.
Hi there, everyone. I am interested in talking about the proposed dog run alternate location at Chelsea Park.
Ellie, I'm sorry, we're talking about the trees now, but I think that is later on in the agenda.
Okay, that was.
Is that okay?
I'll wait, sure.
Great. Yeah, thank you. But then we'll call on you again when that comes up.
No problem.
Christine Berthet, who, by the way, just Christine is a member of CB4 on two other committees, but on our board.
Thanks, Leslie. Thank you for the Parks Department and MBPO, and we are very happy to hear all this good news. So just to give you a little background, our district has the third worst air quality in the city. So, I know that we may not be the top level as far as environmental justice, but from an air quality standpoint, we are way up there because of the traffic, because of the bus terminal, because of Penn Station, because of all of that. So I think when you make your determination of who is getting your, the trees, I think you may want to put that in as one of the criteria, the air quality and asthma, etc. So I started to install trees with the first 1,000,000 trees, and so I have a little bit of experience. So here are some thoughts. We have a district where a lot of very large buildings are being built, and with very large building, we are getting a lot of Con Ed grates on the sidewalk, which completely prevents the trees. So the zoning say you have to have one every 25 feet, but in fact you can't, because, and then when you can't, there is no one who really makes sure that those trees which are displaced come back in our neighborhood. So I would recommend that there is some zoning changes and some protocol changes at the Parks Department saying, okay, we need, let's say there are trees which are going to be displaced, there should be a call to the community board saying, where do I put them? At a minimum, right? At a minimum. And it's not happening now. So I think we need that protocol, and definitely Con Ed could organize their grades in a way that there is a lot of space in between to put trees. So somebody should be sitting down with Con Ed and have this discussion about, okay, you are not going to put your trees parallel to the street now, you are going to put them perpendicular, and you are going to leave 20 feet in between. So these are things that I think are very feasible, but they are not happening now. The second thing we have is, because we were historically a manufacturing space, we have a lot of curb cuts. And that's another thing, that even if the curb cuts are not being used, and if the property owners doesn't remove the curb cut, then we cannot plant in the curb cut. I think there should be a protocol which says you can plant in the curb cut, unless there is literally an entrance to a garage there, right? But the curb cut shouldn't be off limits. We have too much of this. We have a lot of it, lots of it. The third piece is the protection of the trees. We have, every time there is one of those buildings built, people come to the Parks Department and they say, oh, I need to move the tree. And this is now a 30-year tree. We need to have a protocol which says to the departments, look, if there is a tree, it's just like having a fixed asset, and you have to build around it, not move the trees. And I think we should have a very strong, because growing a tree 25 years is a huge investment of the city. And for a developer to come and say, oh, I just want to move it just a little to the right because I want to put my door there, I don't think it's fine. So that's another requirement, that all those things would make it so much easier to have appropriate space to plant the trees. And finally, I understand that in every other county except New York, Manhattan, when the Parks Departments plant a tree, they install a tree guard. And I still don't understand why in Manhattan we don't. What have we done to you guys? So I think it should be the same for everybody. The tree guards protect the tree. It ensures longevity. And there's no reason why, if it's done for every other district, it's not done for Manhattan. And finally, I tried to do the watering. I bought not a pipe or whatever, a tube. I went to the class to get the keys for everything. And I did it 2 times, and this was it. You must provide watering for 1 or 2 years if we want those trees to survive. I mean, if we otherwise we feel good about doing something and we are wasting our time. So these are my inputs based on experience, and then but I am delighted that you want to increase the trees. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Christine. I wrote some of those notes down when we talk about
Thank
the
you.
points of the letter.
I would headline that as design for trees.
Sure, hold on 1 second. Janine, did
Yeah,
he?
Toby came over.
Oh, he did.
Yes.
Toby, I think you had your hand up to speak. I don't see, oh, I see his. Toby Crane, can you hear me?
I'm unmuted now.
There you go.
All right, thank you for hearing me. First thing I wanted to mention, those trees next to Chelsea Park, I think they're having a hard time keeping those going, those mature trees from ground issues, but they're great. Across the street from those trees, however, next to the post office sorting facility, they're having a hard time with trees. There's a lot to picking the right tree. Now, on that subject of picking the right tree, I'm very concerned. There's just really the beginning of a battle in our part of the country and everywhere against the spotted lanternfly. The little thing that said to people was, if you see it, stamp it. Okay. And I know that there are parks and city people who really know what's going on. They know down to the tree where these things are breeding. I have property and I have people with other properties, and I've been talking to people and looking for anything I could find. I was killing them as they were trying to breed and go back up in the trees to lay their eggs in one place. So I know they know what's going on. I venture to say defoliation, I think in some places in Queens and other places, is very serious. And it's probably getting worse. They know which trees to use. I trust that they're going to be planting trees that are not going to encourage these insects. Now, how about a layperson like myself? What if I have some trees? I have a yard. I know that there's little clusters that are up on the branches. I don't really know what to do. I don't know what to tell my daughter to do for her 75-foot oak tree that was it was losing so much sap it was covering my car parked in her lot, and I don't know what to do. I don't want to just use chemicals. I would love to have a plan. I would love to see that I could go somewhere and get a solution or pamphlet out to people who don't really know what to do. We just know that these things are dangerous and they're defoliating trees. Some trees probably have reserves for a year or two, and then they're going to lose their reserves because they're losing too much sap and too many leaves. Thank you for listening. I hope there's a solution.
Thank you, Toby. And thank you for coming as well. So guys, I'm guessing Keisha, that the Manhattan Borough President's Office would like a letter of support, as you mentioned. So do I have someone to make a motion, then we can speak about the points?
I make a motion.
Thank you, Christopher. Second. Thank you, Candace. So Marty, I know you raised a few points, but I'll just go with some of my notes and then guys can fill in the blanks. We know it's a general letter of support, obviously, for this program or the thought of this program, the formation of this program. We do want to mention where funding is coming from, or the thoughts about funding, right? That was mentioned. We want to find out to determine how it will be determined where the trees will go. We do want to be very district specific to our district. We do want to mention what Christine said, that we do have the third worst quality of air. And, you know, there should be a number of determining factors, that being one of them. Another one is that we hardly have any green or park space, and that should be a factor, hopefully moving us up to the top of the list with the other factors that Hannah mentioned. What else? Provide the watering, Christine, right? You mentioned about the watering. I think that can be also mentioned in the letter. What else?
In conclusion, with
There
that,
was-
green cutouts,
I'm sorry?
rain cutouts, so that way we can preserve the mature trees that we have already, in addition to the new trees that would be planted. So engineering factors for longevity.
So rain cutouts, would that be beyond the scope of this program or?
According to Hannah, it falls within the scope, because if you're getting new
Okay.
trees in, it would be a part of the engineering plan.
We should also then, what I think is very important, the tree pits or tree guards. That should be definitely a consideration, if not, I dare to say mandatory with coming with the trees. Brad, you have your hand up? No?
Leslie, there was some discussion around legislative or I guess policy changes to incorporate more tree area. I think, David talked about the yard space having a
Oh,
tax
yes,
incentive,
David.
and Christine spoke about changes in zoning. Maybe these can be.
I mean, I talked about Con Ed and
Yeah, and
curb cuts.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just don't want to get too wide of a letter. I mean, I guess we could include it, but I think this is in.
I think, in fact, Leslie, we should include it. The business of protecting trees during construction are a concern of ours. If we're supporting a tree initiative, we should also be supporting protection of trees that exist.
That's a great
And
point. But
And
that's,
that's
I mean, the
that's
protocol,
Con Ed,
the change
Con Ed
protocols.
bolts, curb cuts, trees that are destroyed by contractors who are building buildings are all diminishing the number of trees that we have. And I have
think-
those.
I think, yeah, what you mean is the displacement of trees and the change of that protocol.
Yes.
Got it.
So
Brad, can you hear me? Brad?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
What I was going to say, if we go back to your first point of funding, I'd like to put in there that some of the congestion pricing coming, we should have some of that money for our greenway. I also think we should ask for federal dollars, no doubt. I mean, there's not one tree at the vent for the tunnel. There's not one tree there. I mean, it's ridiculous. As far as the contractor stuff, when I build a building, we have to have a tree company come out, make sure it's tested, protected, maintained. There's a whole process, a procedure already in place. So I would say enforcement of the existing rules would be important. I think there's no doubt that we got to talk about a text change. If you're going to work in your rear yard in our historical district, you got to add a tree. And I think we should put in new ideas for a waterway and how we could add trees that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Christopher?
thank you, co-chair. So to help out in structuring the letter, it quite possibly could be 3-tiered, which would be funding, obviously, preservation, engineering, and longevity. And then the third would be incentives and policies.
Christopher, it sounds like you should be writing this letter.
I would definitely co-author it with somebody who's taking as many notes as I am. Yeah. Yes.
I can send you notes. Would you want to do that?
Yes, please.
Okay, that would be great. Well, we'll vote on
If
it
anybody
first.
thinks that there's another column that should be on there, by all means, but it looks like policies and incentives, preservation, engineering, longevity, and then funding.
I don't want to interrupt this creative process, but I want to reiterate that we can share a draft of what we have, and you're again welcome to delete, edit, customize. So all the ideas you've listed and the things that you collectively decide are what you want to put in it, that can all be
I'm not
included.
looking to reinvent the wheel, Hannah. That would be lovely.
Yeah.
Great, and we appreciate that, Hannah. Carl, I'm sorry, you're going to say something?
No, sorry, no.
Okay. Okay, great. So I guess those are all the points, and Christopher, Marty and I will send you the points that we wrote down in notes, and then we can go over a draft. But I just want to take a vote on those points. So I guess we'll all in favor raise your hand, and then we'll probably do the opposite, which would be easier. Janine, do you have that? Can you see that?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, and all against? I'll let everyone put their hand down first. Oh, including myself. All opposed? Present, not eligible, and abstaining? No? Great, thank you. You guys, who do you suggest we write the letter to? Obviously, the Manhattan Borough President's Office, Parks Department. Is there anyone specifically you suggest the letter to go to?
No, those two are fine. Most boards have been addressing it to either way.
Okay, and we'll also CC our council member as well. But
just to be clear, Leslie, I think we had a unanimous vote in favor. Is that, if that's not correct, somebody should put their hand up now.
No, yeah, it was, I think it was.
Yeah, I got the vote. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. That's great. Keisha, we'll be in touch. Thank you so much. I don't want to bring it up now, but we will be in touch about composting bins. Maybe next month.
No, yeah, for sure. And thank you all so very much for having us this evening. Leslie, feel free to reach out with every and any concern that you have. And you can also feel free to share composting concerns, and I'll be sure to ensure that EE, who I believe is the rep for your board,
yes,
has all of those on hand.
Yes, we are. And Hannah, thank you so much. I know you're going around doing this to a lot of groups, so we appreciate your time.
It was my pleasure, and thank you all for your excellent questions and all the engagement on this topic. So have a great evening, everyone. Take care.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Okay, let's see. What is, oh, New York Parks. Parks is here. I know I saw Therese and a few others. Oh, Bonnie is here. Okay, great. So Parks is going to give us a number of updates. We have on the agenda, A, plans for the dog run at Chelsea Park, B, the preliminary response to our budget requests, and then also I envision C, what they told us, but is not a bullet point here, but they said they were going to give us just an update on what we talked about last month at Hell's Kitchen Park. Therese, just correct me if I'm wrong on any of those, but
nope, that's correct.
Okay, I will give it to you.
Great, thank you so much. So thank you those who are joining. And I have slides to show you. I think I can share my screen, so I'm going to do that really quickly. Can everybody see what I've got on my screen? Yes, no?
Yes, we could see that.
Great, thank you. So as we had said so many meetings about Penn South and what an amenity that was, and what a great loss it was to those in the dog owners in the community. This came about as a request for us to create this presentation and look into the possibility of finding a new place for a dog run, and Chelsea Park handball courts was mentioned. So we brought this for you as something we pulled together right quickly so that you can see what the scope of this is that we have as a proposal for the handball courts at Chelsea Park. So for those of you who don't know where those handball courts are, that's 28th Street on the top above that arrow, and you have 10th Avenue on the left side, 9th Avenue on the right, and right in the smack dab in the middle in that green area is the handball courts. And there's 3 on the other side of that square that would be remaining handball courts, and the ones that are in that square are the ones that would be staying. I mean, the ones that would be turned into a proposed dog run. So we're looking at existing conditions on the 10th Avenue side, which would be the left. This is the entrance area. This is the handball courts as they are now on that side. These are the ones that would be staying as handball courts. And then you have this side, which we could be converting into an area where the dogs could be off leash. So if you're aware of that area, it's under construction currently. On the right, you have the basketball courts that are currently being renovated, as well as a fitness area. And this is the layout that we would propose to have this while that construction is going on, we would be installing a temporary fence so that people could enter from that 10th Avenue side until construction is over, where we would be able to put the entrance on the construction side as it is currently, which is on 10th Avenue. So the cost of which I mentioned would be around $15,000. We have it laid out here as fencing, the paint, any incidentals, which are water connections, bench conversions, just general parts and pieces and tools that we need. So here's what we have for you today, as we were asked to pull together as a proposal for this side of the handball court. And I know this isn't a done deal. I know it looks very much like it's a done deal. It's something that we're here to talk about, and I'm grateful that those of you who have come to talk about this are willing to wait and see this and mention what you've all mentioned to us separately in emails and in phone calls and such. So thanks so much. Do we want to take questions now or go on to other updates?
No, we'll take questions on this now. We'll go step by step, I think.
Would you like me to stop sharing?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks, Therese. Carl.
Yeah. What exactly does the construction consist of, and how long of a projected, construction period would we be looking at for this conversion?
So construction of this proposed area?
Right. Yeah.
I have our chief, Bonnie Williams, on, and I think she can answer to that faster than I can.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. So this is all going to be done with in-house resources. We're not outsourcing this to a contractor. So it's all weather contingent, but it's minimal site work. It's really introducing fencing, some paintings, and getting the water source there. So it could be, maybe a month's time to actually do the installation if we have good weather.
Carl, did that answer your question, or do you want anything? You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's assuming that this would, start. But when you say good weather, is that temperature oriented? Like, could it start in March, or do you need to wait for a certain, like, when could this begin?
So once we get approval, we really just need to order the materials. Supply chain issues always come in as a factor. It's been a thing since COVID, but this is standard fence items, benches, which we already have in stock. We would have to retrofit. So if we had the go ahead, a lot of this work could start in March. And hopefully if April is a nice April, because we've had great weather and we're hoping it continues, maybe by the end of April, have this up and running.
And then just one more question. So we, last time with our previous dog park, the big problem was noise for the neighboring residents. I think our only real residential neighbor here is to the south of this spot, which is NYCHA. I don't know if anyone from NYCHA is here tonight, but I would really hate to repeat this exercise. So I'm just curious what the outreach to that, we have a very active tenant association there. If there's been any sort of communication with our NYCHA constituents about this and concern about the noise, et cetera.
That's a good question, Carl. We were hoping that NYCHA would be on the call tonight since we were presenting. It always is a concern. We could present to them separately if needed, but, we're not going to know the noise levels until we put this into play. And if that does happen, we could take steps to mitigate it. We could put wind screening on the fence, maybe introduce some planter boxes with some vegetation to absorb the noise. But we won't know that until we execute the plan. I know that's not the greatest answer. It's a little more separate than Penn South, so I don't think the noise would be as pungent as it was there. So we would know once we actually put this into play.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that I would just anticipate taking some extra steps to expect that. So, I think planter boxes could be part of the site plan to begin with. I think we should just anticipate those issues instead of, having to deal with them 6 months from now. So,
Completely agreed. And that's why we have the incidentals in there, and it's something we can incorporate into the design plan.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Christopher?
Yeah, I appreciate Carl remembering NYCHA this time around. Look, ultimately, I have a few concerns. One is sound mitigation, because it's not just NYCHA residents, it's kids. This board also meets at Hudson Guild once a month for full board, or rotating through. So over the last 7 years, I've actually gotten to know it. And on top of that, I've also played flag football on the field in that park for most of my life. I'll tell you this, sound travels. Having played in Amsterdam houses, I know exactly what it sounds like when kids are echoing through buildings, and I know what it sounds like when dogs are barking in back alleyways. You have a concrete wall there, and there's no there's no space between large and small dogs. Dogs bark, people get loud, whistles are blown. The sound needs to be mitigated. So yes, if you can pull some air screens that you have in stock from your tennis programming, please, by all means, do that. If you can consider trees, do that. Additionally, the concrete wall, I'm a musician, as a hobby, and concrete walls echo very, very, very well. So if you can find any, just literally anything to mitigate that sound off the concrete walls, that would be greatly appreciated. I just said echo, my Amazon thing just went crazy, so Jeff Bezos is now listening to this conversation too. But yes, please do that. And then most importantly, we have an ingress egress for the dog portion. Where is the ingress egress for the handball / like tennis wall?
So if you saw on Teresa's slide, so we have the construction that's going on right now.
Yeah.
So temporarily, we would have a gate set up with a fence delineating to the dog run. So you bring your dogs in, there'd be an entrance for the active handball court, and then a fence delineating to go down there. Once the construction is done at the other end, it's going to be completely a dog run entrance with a double gate, and then fencing will be installed on either side of the handball wall, so no one can pass through. And there'll be screening on that as well.
Okay.
So dogs won't see the handball and start going crazy and start barking and chasing after it.
Dogs, things happen in handball either way. And then the second one was just the plan for a small dog, large dog.
So with this design, it will not allow to have a small dog. This is similar to Penn South. This will not, we don't have the space to separate it.
Okay.
So this would just be a strict dog run.
Okay, so as a strict dog run, could there be large dog hours and small dog hours?
It's something that we typically have not done in the past, but it's something we could look into.
Yeah, I mean, large dogs, especially in the twilight, are allowed when people are trying to have dinner, study, do work, shit like that.
I have a
cursing.
200-pound Saint Bernard that lives with me.
Yeah.
But thinks he's the size of a Chihuahua. Completely understand.
Yeah.
And it's something we can consider, and we can, eventually we will engage. If this comes to fruition, we would engage a group, because with any dog run, we have a group associated with it that helps maintain it. So
Yeah.
we could engage them, and, dog owners are very good about policing and knowing when it's appropriate for their dog, small or large, to be in there, but it's something we can totally consider.
Thank you very much. I actually grew up with a Brazilian Bull Mastiff, so I know your pain owning and love of owning large dogs. Yeah.
Yes.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christopher, and thank you for the salty language. Candace?
Hi, thank you for your presentation, and really appreciate it. I feel like I'm going to echo a lot of what Christopher had just asked. I had questions as well about the small and large dog area. I know with Penn South, a lot, it was the elderly that were wanting to sit there with their dogs. I remember hearing that was a main focus for that group. Also, can we go back to the slide where the construction and where the fencing is? Okay, on the fence that's above between the two handball courts, or that separates the handball courts, is that gonna be, what size fence? Is it gonna be able to see through? Because, I guess my concern with that is with dogs, somebody actually hitting a handball and the dog looking at it, and what kind of fencing is gonna be used on that side? Is it gonna be completely separated?
That's gonna be an 8-foot fence from the wall to the existing fence with screening on it, so you cannot see through it.
Okay, and then this, where on the bottom part, where the entrance after construction, where's the walk around, I guess, of the park, of how they would entrance into this?
Currently, it's on the 10th Avenue side right here. So this is only, and again, the construction that's going on is slated to end in the spring. So we might not even, depending on the timeline, we might not need this 4-foot fence, but we're anticipating the other construction going a little longer. This would be a 4-foot fence running straight down. So you have a path to get to the other side with your dog, not to interfere with the handball players. Once the other construction is done, Curious, go to the other slide, please. In the corner here, you'll see where it says entrance. This will be a double gate to allow access just to the dog run. And we will mimic what we did on the other side with the fence, the 8-foot fence on this side with the wind screening, so no one can see through or pass through.
And can you go back to that other slide, the actual colored slide with the checkered and where the, yes. So the water that's coming from where, because that's on the bottom left is the restrooms area. Where is that water? Where is that part?
We'll pull water from the comfort station, and right outside the fence area, we'll have what's called like a quick coupler, or, just a hose bib where a hose can be set up and you'll have water access. We can't bring water into the handball court because then we would have to dig up the concrete and it would be a much bigger process. So we can bring it right out to the fence of the handball court, but there'll be access for us to clean the dog run or the group that's associated with it. And if they want to get water for the dogs, they would be allowed to.
And what is the actual square footage of that area that this is now? I mean, I know it's 3 handball courts.
This area is 80 by 45.
And how many dogs would that comfortably run around?
Well, if it was my dog Candace, it would probably be 2, but to Christopher's point, having hours for small dogs and large dogs, probably would alleviate the problems we had in Penn South. So that's something we don't normally have as an agency policy, but we would have to talk about with, one of our commissioners and see if we could add that to the rules and regulations sign.
Okay, and not even it being also the Elliott houses, PS 33 is right across the way as well. So that needs to be reached out. I mean, these kids, they don't need to have dogs barking while they're trying to learn. And if we could reach out for them. And also in between this new area that is under construction right now, I noticed it was some kind of weightlifting area, and what else? It looked like almost like a sitting bench area next to the handball courts, or I guess there's a walkway and then the handball courts walkway, and then the new part, it looked like there was new benches that are being set up, and maybe greenery. It looked like maybe grass was going to be planted over there. So I'm thinking is that going to be what's going to be in that area? I guess it's where the basketball courts are right now.
It's a paved area and the pavement's being laid right now. I think they're in that part of the process, and that there's going to be a few benches on that side.
Yeah, I noticed 4 benches, and like I said, there was a green grass area as well in that area.
There's tree pits and then there's the walkway. So it's not really going to be a grass area, but there's a grass area below it that's a part of what's adjacent to the playground.
Okay. And then with all the new tree pits that are around, there's all wood chips in that area. And the dogs like to scratch at it, pee in it. I hope if this does go through, we think about putting those tree guards around.
We will definitely note that. And with the trees that are being installed in the area you're discussing, Candace, with the permeable pavers, those trees will act as a buffer as well with the sound, but we can look into wind screening. We can look into those other mitigating materials that can lessen the sound in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Candace. Brad?
Yes, I'd like hop stocks put in for the dogs, please. Oh, kidding. First of all, Teresa, I'd like to thank you. You know, we've been on this board for a long time, and you guys really are turning these things around quick, and it's greatly appreciated. Really have to compliment you guys. I've never seen you guys move so fast on multiple of items lately, so it's greatly appreciated. I don't want to discriminate against large and big dogs. I just think if I had a little dog and I got to take him there in the morning, I got to take him there in the morning. You know, I own a dog, I take care of my dog, and I got to be aware of my surroundings, just like anything in the city. So I am opposed to that greatly. But other than that, I think everybody had some great suggestions. Thank you again.
Thank you, Brad. Tina?
Yeah, just
Noted.
I'm just wondering on the handball bull court that's now the dog run, that cement wall. I was just wondering, are there any plans maybe to think about if there aren't, like some paint, an interesting color paint, or maybe having the kids from what do you call it, the local community center there, maybe do ideas for a mural, something fun and colorful, that sort of thing.
That's actually a great idea. We are going to be painting the handball courts. We'll be restoring the actual handball side, putting the correct logo on there and making that look brand new. And then I don't want to give away too many secrets, but we do have a plan. We don't get into murals per se, because with that, then we have to get into an agreement of maintaining them, and it's hard for the schools to do that. But with our in-house painters that are very talented, it's not just going to be a blank wall. We're looking to jazz it up a bit.
Thank you. It's great.
Is that it, Tina? Or do you have anything
Yeah,
else?
that's it. Thank you.
Tina, that was a great point on the mural, by the way. I just had a few questions. So I do think, actually, if we're going to do this, I do think it's important to have a small dog area cordoned off. And I just going to dog parks a lot. I have a medium-sized dog, so I don't know where that would fit in. But I think it's a very long area. It actually is a pretty good size dog run. I don't think it would be that hard when you first walk in, and I'll let the planners do it, Therese, that there is a separated small dog area. And it just has to be small, because I think what a lot of people from the public said, and we're going to bring them over because there's a lot of hands raised, so I just want to mention that we see you, is I think there was a sense of community. And I think it would be nice if we had a small area where people could just sit and their little dogs could, roam around. It doesn't have to be a huge area, but if that could just be looked at again, that would be great. I do think it's an important element. If we are going to do this, we should do it. And which brings me to my next question. So I know there's a lot of things like, the water or like the surface. Are we looking at this as, so we knew that the Penn South was a temporary one, Penn South Playground. Are we looking at this as like another I don't want to say temporary one, but just to see what's going to happen, and then maybe we can put some more resources in? Is that a little bit what we're looking at, or are we going to put resources in from the beginning under that $15,000 price tag?
So I think I'll comment on the small and big dog run, Teresa, and then I'll let you jump in. We'll measure it out. the space seems large, but once we start adding the double gates and the benches, it really lessens the amount of space. So it's something we can look at, Leslie. We're not saying no to it. We'll have our team go out and measure. We have Bradley Romaker, who was instrumental in putting this together. He's a landscape architect on the Manhattan team. We'll have him go out and we'll come back with numbers of if we were to do a small dog run, what that size would be and what the large dog run would be.
Okay, because the reason why I highlight that is because though the Penn South Playground temporary one was, I could be wrong, the people who used it can correct me. It was a lot of Penn South people. Where this dog run is going to be, it's going to be a wider community. Hopefully we'll use it. And there'll be bigger dogs, there'll be small, it's going to, I think, open up the dog population in the area. And I just wanted to make note of that.
No, completely understood. Therese, do you want to tackle the next question?
Yes, that area has that walkway. And so that walkway, and Bonnie, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to go away once construction is over. So that walkway adds a 5 to 8 foot of space. So there could be something that we do after construction. And I have to mention that in March, the end of March, we're going to be starting the track area getting reconstructed. So it's, we're getting a whole new park piece by piece. We just got the playground. If you can repeat the other question, I've actually forgotten it. So
Are you, that's okay. You sound like my husband. Are you, are you thinking of, like, I know Penn South Playground was a temporary one and that's what it was designated for. Is this kind of, I don't want to say temporary, but I mean, are you looking at it obviously with the budget tag here?
Well,
or like,
we're
I'm talking
here.
about surfaces, like, asphalt obviously is not a great surface. Like, how far are we going to go into this and when?
So right now we only have the in-house resources we have for what we've got budgeted here. And that's what we would pursue. Sorry, I've got also my colleague on her call. So after that amount, I mean, there's participatory budgeting funding. There's all kinds of things we could ask for. If it's something that's successful, we could pursue that, right?
So like levels. Yeah, no, that's what I was figuring. I just wanted to see what you guys were envisioning.
And I think it really depends on the support that we're getting for this. I mean, look, concrete can get slippery. We're looking to treat the surface on that side of the handball court. We want the dogs to be comfortable. We've had issues with concrete in dog runs. So we're keeping all of those things in mind. Would it be easy to revert back to a handball court? It would. But if the support is there, it's temporary, but we would like to make it work and be long-term.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. I know, and Therese knows this, one of our budget asks is always not always, but mostly the surfacing of the dog park at DeWitt Clinton. Right, Therese? We always say that's been our ask for a long, long time, and that's still asphalt. So I thought if we were doing this, but that makes sense to layer it.
Leslie, can we use the language trial and not temporary?
Trial? I don't even think it should
Yeah.
be. I don't think it should be either, right? I think this is, we could do trial. It's whatever you guys
I just
think.
want, temporary implies removing, and I think if we're hearing them correctly, that is not necessarily the goal with this. This is looking at more of a long-term
Correct
fixture of the park.
Neither temporary nor trial.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's either. I would think this is hopefully going to be a long-term thing,
right?
Depending on community feedback over, a number of weeks, months. I do want to thank Carl for bringing up a point though of community outreach. I know that was one of our comments at the last meeting, and even if no one from NYCHA or Hudson Guild is here today, that we can even help facilitate that. And Teresa, I know you guys know them anyway, so but it would be important if it's going to be right there, that just their input, and their tenant association is pretty accessible. So we can definitely.
Well, as steps go, we've moved pretty fast here. So at least
Yeah,
we've,
exactly.
we've engaged you
This is
in
great.
this little bit amount of time, right? And you've
Yeah.
engaged us. So, and all the dog run community has engaged us as well. So.
No, this is great. And I mean, everyone else touched upon everything. I'm going to, Janine, I see a lot of hands. Can you bring them over, I guess, in order? And we're talking about, guys, this topic of the dog park. Toby
Leslie, for
again,
that.
Shelley, and Lisa, we can start with. And I'm just going in the order top to bottom that I see them.
So Shelley and Lisa are over. I'm waiting for Toby.
Okay. Shelley, where's Shelley? She was on before, so I know she's, oh, there she is. Shelley, go ahead.
Hi, sorry about before, but so this is the topic we're talking about now. And I was very active, as many of you know, in the Penn South Park dog run. And while we were very disappointed that was shut down, we had an amazing group of community members that are very supportive of an accessible run near Penn South. And the Chelsea Park looks like a good location, very accessible to Penn South and also to the Elliott Chelsea houses. And so I'm excited about having a coalition of dog owners and volunteers. We already have some volunteers. And I spoke to Darlene Waters, who's the Tenant Association president at Elliott Chelsea houses. And she told me she was very supportive of the idea and invited me to attend their tenant meeting on Monday. And she said there are a number of people there who have dogs, and they've been really wanting a dog run for a long time. And when there is a dog run, because sometimes there's problems with dogs, but when they have a place to exercise and play, they can be better neighbors. They are less barky at home, and they are, they learn to socialize, and then it builds a community between, it certainly did that for residents at Penn South. And there were also some residents of the NYCHA houses who use the Penn South run. And we really want to put together a group, a coalition, so that it's for everyone. And I know there's always going to be, complaints and problems. Some people mention, don't take away the handball courts, but we see that, I live nearby, and I see that while they tend to be used in the mornings, on weekends only, it's pretty quiet there most of the time that you walk by at other times of the day. So I think it will be very effective in, bringing the community there at more times and more inclusive, because there are people in Penn South and also at the Elliott Chelsea houses who have disabilities, who are elderly, and they've never had an opportunity to make this kind of community among the, Penn South and the NYCHA houses. So I'm excited about it. And I think it's a fair way to share the resources for both. And, there's always somebody who says, well, you're going to take it away from, someone else who's using it. But we have to share resources, because there's no place in the city where there's emptiness. There's a vacuum, and then you can say, oh, use that for a dog run. So it's just a part of life in the city that space is always a challenge. But we do have volunteers and people who are interested and excited about this. And I think that will grow over time.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. And we'll reach out to you about starting that dog run group.
Great. Terrific.
Well, I'd like to ask Jordan to work his magic that he worked last time, and bringing you all together the last time you came to Penn South. Big shout out to Jordan for making that community what it was. So I hope he's still on to hear that.
And you said that the NYCHA Housing is having their tenant meeting on Monday?
On Monday, yes.
Okay, Therese, we'll circle back about that. That might be a good forum.
Great. Toby?
Yes, hello. I wanted to speak about the proposed dog run where the courts are now. I wanted to mention that I see that that's one of the only places people can use something like that at all that I know of. I've used it in the past to practice my ball skills for the soccer ball. And I walked by the other day, I said, well, let me see who's over there. A father was teaching his son or with a tennis racket. It's not just a handball court. It's one of the only places people can go to bounce something off of something. I used to have a great time over there. I'd hate to see that disappear for the people who use it, because if you look at it, there's where else to go. When I grew up, there was a big high school wall we used. Okay, now I proposed a place is actually for dog running, because this is not dog hanging out, and there's somewhere where you want the dog to run. It's a really nice, long, straight place. And someone gave this ridiculous amount of money that it would cost to convert this place. And it's right there next to the health department. It's right next to 29th to 28th Street, between 8th and where Chelsea Park is. It's maybe 10 feet wide. It's maybe only 10 or 8 feet wide, but it was something like 50, 60 feet long. So raise the sides, make the gates, protect the trees, and they can have fun. Go up and back and up and back. Of course, on the ends, you can have the places where the benches are, where the cans are, whatnot. It doesn't bother anybody as far as sound. There's no one even near there. The Penn South building that's involved is way off that corner. The church and the Apostles across the street. The health department's there. I don't think it bothers anybody. I think it'd just be a wonderful place to actually have watching dogs go back and forth. I think people love to look at it. They look through the grate as they're walking east and west. I think it'd be a fantastic thing. I hope they'll look at it again. Thank you.
Thank you. So Toby, I remember I got a message from Anna, and I was really appreciating her email. And I think she sent a video of you. Is that correct? Pointing out the area you're talking about, and you're
Yes.
talking about 28th Street, just along the side of the sidewalk where there's a garden, and it's got multiple trees in it, right?
I don't know if it's really a garden, but yes, it has multiple trees there. Yes.
Yeah, we've been trying to grow grass there, and it's been difficult with as many dogs as we have already running in it.
I'm sorry, that place doesn't have any dogs. It's sort of fenced off from the sidewalk, between the sidewalk and the
it's like a long
sidewalk.
narrow. It's a long narrow area with a 4-foot fence that's wrought iron. And
yes, and they de-ratted the area a few years ago by digging everything up, right?
yeah. So it's still got trees in it. It's still quite a lot of soil, which those trees need to absorb a lot of water around, and they're doing pretty well. To introduce dogs there might be very detrimental for those trees.
Oh, I see. Oh. I always think there's a solution somewhere, but
Thank you very much, Toby.
all right.
Thank you. Lisa?
First one. If not, there you go, Rafael.
Toby, thank you. Lisa?
Hi.
Hi, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I want to say that I'm extremely excited about this new proposal. I took my 2 dogs who are 12 years old there 2 times a day, and they still pull me there looking for the park. My feeling, you had asked that we would know better, that people came from all over. There weren't only Penn South people. I mean, I made friends there. I even spent New Year's Eve with people I just met. Like it's it's such a great loss to me and my dogs every day. I really miss that park. So I am just so excited, and will definitely be a volunteer. So that's what I wanted to say. I hope we can make this work. I mean, Toby's concerned. There's still going to be handball courts. So we're just making a little space for this community, which is wonderful. I also think that regarding the big and small dogs, my dogs are 9 pounds and 12 pounds, and they were fine with the bigger dogs. You know, it was my responsibility to watch them too, which I did, but I never felt that it was an issue, everybody intermingling. I think, you know, if someone had a problem dog, they left, or if there was an issue, they left. Anyway, so that's my feelings on the whole thing. And I wanted to be sure to be heard because I live across the street from the other one, and I never felt that the noise was outrageous. But so hopefully this gets passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm sure that you liked what you saw today, right?
I loved it. Yes, I'm very excited.
That's great.
Yes.
I
I apologize.
coming too.
I just got kicked off of our computers because they've run an update and kicked us all off. So I'm on my phone now.
May, I believe, or Mai, is it?
Hi, it's May.
Hi, May. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Hi. So I'm joining today just to show my support for the potential dog park. I was also one of the people who utilized the temporary one, which was closed. My pup, same thing as Lisa. I'm going to try to keep this as short and simple as possible because she touched upon almost all the things that had been mentioned. So first, that park was utilized by big dogs, small dogs, people who were in the community, people who lived at Penn South, and there were others who were visiting from a different country. And they just happened to hear about this park. So I don't think a separation between big and small dogs is necessary. If we're trying to save money, I honestly want to say, like, giving the dogs a space where they can run around without their leash, that's more than sufficient. To give them anything beyond that, that's a blessing. So at the end of the day, I want to say, like, giving them that space, even if it's concrete, with the fence, they're happy to see their dog friends. My dog, we walked to the one at Madison. It's overly crowded. And so what if there's a separation between big dogs and little dogs? She won't play in there. She misses her friends that she sees at the little one because they're more familiar. She feels safe. She would run with the bigger dogs in the small temporary one that was closed, but now she won't play with the little ones. In the big dog run, if one of her friends come by, she would play for a little bit, but that's about it. And there's no running water either, so it's not like it's that much better, the one at Chelsea Water Parks. So whatever it takes for us to get it, I think we're more than happy to compromise. And like everyone has said, we're sharing a space. Handball courts will still be there. So everyone wins in this situation. If you have any other questions or want me to elaborate anywhere else, I'm more than happy to do so. So I'm going to stay for the rest of the Q&A or question and answer part. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for coming. We know this has been a long discussion, a long over a period of months discussion. So thank you. There's two more, Janine, unless I missed someone that you already brought over, but I see.
I brought over Joan, and then I was trying to bring Anna over, but it's not letting me.
Okay, Anna, if you could hear me, I think you have to accept Janine's invitation to come over. And then there was a third.
Oh, I see Tone, they also went over.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm sorry. Who did you bring over? You said I can't.
Oh, first was Joan.
Oh, Joan. Great. Thank you, Joan.
Sorry, I have to unmute. So I want to say that I've been working with street trees and trees at the participatory budgeting level for many years now. And I'm very encouraged to know that there might be a dog park and that dog run, excuse me, and that dog owners will be alerted to protecting trees, because that is a big issue. If you can't protect the trees from the dogs, dog urine will definitely damage those trees or kill them. So I think a dog run could be a great opportunity for the Parks Department and in general, whoever is in charge of that area, to educate dog owners what is proper etiquette when you're dealing with street trees, which are a big asset for New York City residents and need to be protected. So here's an opportunity. You have just the right target market to create a message which has to do with maintaining the health of the trees and cooperating with your neighbors to have a beautiful area with healthy trees, and to get dog owners to get on board with that and educate them. I think it's a great opportunity. I hope someone embraces that idea and goes for it. All you need is a few signs in a dog run just to get the idea started. I would be so happy to see that. Anyways, that's all I have to say, and good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. Anna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you so much. I feel like I'm in, like I have my foot in NYCHA because I lived there for 20 years, and I feel like I have my in Penn South because I lived here for 20 years. And my thing is to remove the handball court and put a dog park. First of all, we're talking about it's not healthy. We know that for the smells, the large quantities of ammonia causes immediate burning in the throat, the respiratory tract and nose. And you're going to put people there who are breathing hard because they're playing handball, or kids who are running, to suddenly be inhaling these smells. There's not going to be, like they said, the water, the way it should be there is not going to be there. They put it in Penn South, and Penn South, because of the noise and the smell, they moved it out. Now they want to put it into a lower income neighborhood because that's what it is. Penn South has all their private parks for their kids. NYCHA doesn't. So to me, it's being removed from an upper class neighborhood to a lower income family, which I don't think is right. We have all these multi-million-dollar dog parks around the area, but people want to roll out of bed and roll to a park, which is what I don't understand, why it's okay. Oh, let's go in the lower income neighborhood and take something else instead of making something better for them. And this is why I don't like what's happening. That what Toby was speaking about, she mentioned about it's not good for the trees. That would have been protected. There would have been chips. We're not talking about covering it with pavements. I don't understand how we could think about trees, but we can't think about people's health. And I don't like the idea of taking even more from the lower income communities because Penn South doesn't want it in their area. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. And thank you for coming and taking the time. I think we have one more. Is it Danae or Donna?
Danae, that's correct. Yeah, I
Danae,
just wanted
thank you for
to
coming.
thank you all for moving so quickly on this and creating a cooperative environment of being able to split that space. Both Penn South and NYCHA are north developments where you have a lot of aging people with their dogs. I am now not able, and I think I've said this the last time, able to go to Madison Square Park or the piers and walk there. I'm taking the bus with my dog. I'm hopping on it. Happy to support the MTA, but it is difficult for me to stand, wait for the bus, and go to either of those parks. Walking over to this new park is very easy to do, and I think will benefit a lot of the elderly residents in both NYCHA and Penn South. And I think that everything everybody has said previously, Lisa, Shelley, I support everything that they've said. So I just wanted to thank you very much for moving quickly.
Thank you. And again, like I was telling everyone, thank you for coming and your time and comments. I think those are all the hands I see up. So I am wondering if there is a motion for a letter regarding some of the points that we brought up that we want to reiterate to Parks and some of the points that the public brought up. Does anyone have any thoughts or mentions or motions?
Sure, I can take a stab at a motion. I think I would motion that we write a letter in support of for the potential of a dog run at this location, that we still have concerns related to noise that we would like to see addressed, whether that's through hours or design. And we also have concerns related to the space, how the space is shared related to dog sizes, and would encourage Parks to take another look at that and see what can be done. And that we would also encourage continued robust community engagement through presentations to NYCHA. I don't know, possibly a walkthrough of the site. And we should also thank Parks for their quick turnaround on this and for their partnership and working with us. And from what I think will be a big benefit to both Penn South and the NYCHA and Chelsea communities. I think I got everything, but
Yeah, there,
I don't know if I got everything. People can chime in.
Anyone wants a second?
I would second that.
Thank you, Roberta. May I add, Carl? I love Tina's comment. I know they said they were going to have some mural or painting, and then we just want to put it in a letter, maybe just to throw it in there.
To make it a warm and inviting community
So
space.
the dogs have a very cozy atmosphere of and also if someone mentioned, I don't want to leave out who, but I just forget right now, that they're to put tree guards around the trees that are there already. I think just to protect the most immediate trees.
There are no tree guards in the handball court, Leslie. So,
okay.
I mean, to put tree guards, that would hold up this project if we were.
It would up the budget. It would,
it just the permitting process and everything, it would really delay this project.
Okay, Bonnie, if we mention it though, that it's considered down the line, we could throw that in.
I would put it in as, yes, as a future, without a doubt, but for this immediate, we don't want to, we're mid-February right now, so we want to start ordering stuff and getting as much as we can in place to start implementing it. So that would delay it. I just want to note that.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful, actually, Bonnie. And I want to also reiterate what Carl said. I mean, you guys have worked at like breakneck speed, which is a dangerous precedent, by the way, guys, because now we know what can be done.
We have a very passionate team, Leslie. We do.
I know, you guys are great. Candace, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, it was having to deal with the tree guards when you had said where it was, because they're not in the courts area, they're outside where the dogs are coming up to the area. Like I said, there's trees every, I think, probably 5 feet. It's either a tree or a trash can. So that would be the guards around the trees. That was what my hand was up for.
Thank you, Candace, for the clarification. Therese?
Just to ask, are you talking about the trees that are along the street or inside the park away from the handball court? When it comes to tree guards. Can you hear me?
Yes, I feel, you've got the whole walk. If you're having a mass of dogs coming to one area, they're of course gonna pee on trees. It should be that whole block. I don't know how far you guys can go in. I know that inside the park, in the center square, there's a lot of trees in that area. I don't know what's being planted in the new spot. Like they can go over it. That's why I was asking about the green space.
Yeah, well, somebody mentioned that this is a great opportunity to educate dog owners about how they can help to preserve trees and that's something that we shouldn't forget to mention if you could. And we can look into ways of putting up different types of fence around them if it's not tree guards temporarily, just to see if we can mitigate any problems that come up where we see them happening.
And
So-
and to Teresa's point, we do marketing campaigns on litter, on, other initiatives the agency takes on. So it would be a good thing to mention in the letter. It could be initiative the agency could take on at whole. And, with the mature trees within the park, we tend, because of the root system, not to put tree guards because it could be detrimental. But we can look at mulching and other things that would be easy to kind of mitigate the urine and everything away from the tree.
Perfect. We can definitely craft that.
Right. And Max Goodstein is here. If you want to bring him over, he actually can speak to when the track and field is going to start. If you guys need more information on that and our later topic.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that after. I mean, I think I think we have a motion. I think we have all the points, unless I'm missing anything. So why don't we, with a show of hands, vote on the point on Carl's motion and the added points that we're looking forward to proceeding on a dog run at this location. With a show of hands, all in favor? Oh, Candace, no? No, okay, put down all your hands. All opposed? 1, 2, 3. All, and put down your hands, all present, not eligible. And abstentions. Thank you so much. The motion passes. And if I can address the people who voted down, is there anything that we are missing in the letter that you think would be, I mean, the motion passed, but we can always edit the letter, obviously, as it would always go to full board, and then there would be additions, subtractions. Is there anything that is missing that you would suggest to make it a more acceptable letter? Christopher?
Thank you so much, Co-Chair. Yeah, I think ultimately I think the spirit of this project is something we're celebrating. However, I'm worried that just going to a NYCHA Resident Association meeting is insufficient. Having attended NYCHA resident meetings throughout the city, and this one in particular, I can say that it would make me feel a lot better if there was actually door knocking being done to the apartments that are facing the park area. But this would also require bilingual outreach, because we're not talking about it's just it provides a sincere touch to what has in the past been unsincere efforts and measures for the preliminary project that brought us to this space today. So please bring people who speak Spanish and have them just touch the doors that face there, because like it is today, we have 20 attendees for this committee meeting. You'll be lucky to get 20 people at a NYCHA Resident Association meeting, especially for those particular apartment units that are going to be directly affected.
Bonnie?
And I completely understand your point, Chris. If one, we don't have the capabilities to go door to door. We don't have that manpower. We could draft a letter to NYCHA and have them in a bilingual letter, give it to the residents, especially on that side. But we're also within a time crunch here. So, we're trying to figure out the best approach. Again, we thought we would have some people on from the school and from NYCHA tonight that could weigh in. We'll bring it back to Commissioner Perez and Steve and have a conversation of best approaches.
Yeah.
But going door to door it's not something we're going to be tasked with at this point.
Okay.
And be able to execute the dog run
Yeah.
in the time we're trying to do.
You know, Bonnie, my former boss is now the district head of HUD. It's Alika Ampry Samuel. Whenever there's changes with NYCHA facilities, when she was a council member, she was intimately hands-on, didn't matter the borough. Could you please email Alika so that way she can do just in case your email doesn't land with the resident association president in that area, an email from her, just very email may, so that way if there are resources that you may need, they could be made available, or that individuals who don't usually attend those meetings can, because things that happen in NYCHA, as somebody whose parents lived in NYCHA and were raised in NYCHA and who served for the people that currently live in NYCHA, it would mean a lot. It's just that extra touch.
Completely understood. And we will, like I said, we're gonna bring this back to Commissioner Perez. And you know, we're gonna make our best attempt to reach out to as many people as we can.
I think
you,
we
Bonnie.
understand. I think we understand that they're gonna try and do outreach with NYCHA. I think that's it. Thank you, guys. I know there you have other update. Oh, Candace, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, the reason why I wasn't comfortable saying yes on this was because I do applaud the swiftness to find another area, but maybe we look around just right on 10th Avenue. There are a couple plots of land. I don't know who owns them. I know one is having to connect with the High Line, and that's gonna, you know, it's being held in a process right now. So maybe we can hook up and use that plot of land. There's just different areas in our area that could be maybe picked up before. I know just other areas we can look into is what I'm trying to get to, and more outreach. I don't want to approve a letter saying yes, we go forward when there really wasn't an outreach to everybody in the community in that area.
Thank you, Candace. I appreciate your input. Alice, I'm not, and believe me, you don't have, no one has to explain their vote. That's not it at all. Please don't think that. It was more if there was anything in the letter that we could do. Don't feel like anyone has to explain, of course. Alice?
Hi, guys. I actually echo and agree with Christopher and Candace, and that is the main reason why I also voted no. I do feel like we can utilize other locations for this dog park, and I have a feeling that we're gonna come back into full circle where if we don't pull the members of NYCHA, we're gonna get the same argument that we also got at Penn South. So I just feel like a location may not be ideal. If we can find someplace else that could be away from residential areas, then I would love to be able to support it.
Thank you, Alice. Katie?
So listening to all of these things does remind me, you know, a big reason why the other one was such an issue is because it was rushed through. So I actually would like to change my vote to no, just because I think, you know, everyone that's saying not enough outreach has been done is right. And I know, you know, there are people that really want this, but again, the reason the last one didn't work is because it just kind of went through with I mean, I don't even know the community board was super involved in that process to begin with. I think making sure that I think that's a great idea. And it should be brought to NYCHA. It should be brought to everyone else, but it shouldn't be a done deal.
Thank you, Katie. Noted. Janine, do you have that change?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Parks, I know you have, you know what, we were going to talk about the response to the budget requests. Do you mind, and I'm going to make I can get Marty to co-sign on this. Can we table that to the response? Because we have another big we have two more big agenda items, and I know you want to go over Hell's Kitchen Park real quick. Is that okay with Parks?
Yes.
Yeah. Marty?
I could listen, I can respond to your budget request in about 30 seconds.
There, Steve, I love it. It's music to my ears. I'll put you on the timer. Then guess what? why don't we go for it?
Okay, we support all of your budget requests. With two slight changes. One, your suggestion that for more fitness recreation equipment, which you have listed as a capital budget request, we cannot really use capital funds for that purpose. I would appreciate it if you would include it as an expense budget request. We could always use money to update and replace fitness equipment. So that is an ongoing need. And the other thing, of course, you should know is that you no longer need to advocate for additional funding for Penn South Playground. That project is now fully funded, so you can that category for continued support. Everything else that you are advocating for, we agree with.
Great. And Steve, we just passed our response to the preliminary budget at our last full board meeting. And we hit on all the parks individual items, so you should be getting that as well.
Okay, very good.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate your continued advocacy and support for the parks department. Thank you.
You guys are great partners. Thanks, Steve. And I'm sorry, I didn't even know you were here, Steve.
Yeah, well, I was trying to stay under the radar.
You succeeded. Thank you. I know, Therese, we talked about Hell's Kitchen Park last month. There was not a letter that came out, and then there's been discussion since last month. And I know you wanted to come on with an update, and there might be some people from the public that wanted to speak on that. So I'm gonna take it away. I'm just gonna mention one thing, Marty. I'm starting to freeze on my computer. So if I freeze, can you just take over? Because I'm gonna plug in. Thank you. Go ahead.
And we have Max Goodstein, who spoke at the last meeting with the community, and if he could be brought over, that would be really helpful.
And I am here. Hello,
Oh,
guys.
good. Yeah, hey.
Hey.
So forgive me, but I have to pull up Max's drawing because my computer just shut down. So we did listen quite attentively. I had to join at the end of the meeting, but Max was there from the beginning, and we appreciated everybody's concerns that were brought up, especially for the fence that's in the middle of the basketball court. And there's a lot of objections to that fence. And we want to hear all those objections and take note and listen to the concerns that were brought up at that meeting. So we can do that now.
I don't know that we need to hear any more objections. If people are, we gather from the Block Association meeting the other night, that they're not in support of having the fence, so we could just take it out. It's if people don't want it, it's not a big deal. We can just plan.
That sounds like the whole discussion. Am I wrong?
I want to make sure that we get everything though. Is that the whole discussion? Is that what we're here for?
Well, that's what we gather from the meeting that we had with the West 47th, West 48th Street Block Association the other night.
Yeah. And Max, was there anything else we missed?
They also asked us to take away 2 trees in the garden closest to the basketball net, which we're complying with as well. So those 2 trees are now removed. And yeah, just the fence, which is now removed as well.
And you're going to paint for pickleball, and when the pickleball is being played, people are going to be interacting with each other. And when pickleball is not being played, it'll be an open space.
That's completely correct. Completely open.
Is there anything else that we need to hear about the update on Hell's Kitchen Park?
There is someone from the public.
There is one hand up, Marty. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I didn't see that person. If you bring that person over, that would be great. And tell me that.
Janine, can you bring over Kat Lafferty?
Yep, I just brought her over.
Okay, great. Where's Kat, by the way? By the way, Kat is the community gardener for and volunteer for Hell's Kitchen Park, and also on the 47th, 48th Street Block Association. Oh, there you are, Kat. I'm sorry. I was filling.
Yes.
I was filling time. There you are. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you for everyone from Parks who is here. And because of your staff's inspiration daily to me, I am here. And I'm happy to hear that you are considering removing the fence.
They're more than considering, Catherine, excuse me, that they're more than considering it. They said they're not putting it up.
Thank you.
Stronger
That's
than
wonderful.
that.
I'm in favor of that strong statement. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your listening to us. I just wanted to add, I'm just going to list the things I'm thinking about, which are, I would like the benches to stay, the school kids in the basketball court area I'm talking about, the 2 hoop area that currently exists. In total, there are 4 benches, and the kids use those benches to put their school bags on when they play basketball. Often at lunchtime, they also use the space to put their box lunches on. I'm emphatic that we keep that open area as a multi-use space, and so I'm happy that the fence is coming down. But I do have a concern about trash, an ongoing concern, and recyclables that get thrown away as trash. And either in this tranche or another tranche, I would love to have at least bottle recycling, perhaps something similar to the receptacles in Matthews Palmer Park. Because as someone who often picks up trash and recyclables in Hell's Kitchen Park, I that's also a rat attractor, and it's unsafe for play to be, stepping over debris. Thirdly, I was wondering, has there been consideration to any sort of bird baths or I don't know, hybrid bench bird bath? And I mean that seriously. I think that we have to look at the overall ecology of the park. So those are my asks. I know that we're having a wonderful water bottle filler drinking fountain feature added to the basketball court area, which is wonderful. So thank you for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you for that update, Max. And just to fill, I don't know, I'm sorry, I was going in and out when I plugged my computer back in. Parks went to the 47th, 48th Street Block Association last week, just so people know. And there was some feedback on not only the addition of the pickleball court, but also of mostly about the fence that separated the pickleball court from the basketball court areas.
Leslie, Steve started this conversation by saying that fence is not going in.
No, I know. That's why I want to say thank you for listening to the concern of the residents, because I mean, I think this just illustrates how responsive Parks is. I mean, they're putting in a dog run quickly, and literally not even 3 days ago, the major stakeholders of Hell's Kitchen Park voiced some of their concerns, and quickly Parks turned it around and tried to kind of, I don't want to say split the baby, but they tried to make everyone happy or unhappy, I guess, but happy, I think, by at least, if there are no pickleballers there, then that could be a big open space for kids to run or kickball or floor hockey, or other uses. So I just want to say a big thank you, and just to fill people in that they did come to the 47th, 48th Street Block Association to also present their plan. Christopher, your hand is up.
Yeah, just briefly, I apologize for not making this past Tuesday's Block Association meeting, but I know from the response that many in the community voiced their concerns and opinion. And Kat, I really do appreciate everything that you've added to the conversation, because I do believe that fence was a physical representation of gentrification and class division. And for context, Hell's Kitchen Park is my childhood park. Ramona Ponte Park is a reminder of why Puerto Ricans are great in Hell's Kitchen and why Puerto Ricans are great in New York City. But Hell's Kitchen Park is a reminder of the 50-year effort and continuing effort to create green space in a place where there is limited green space. So thank you, Steve, so much for pulling that, and pulling back and adjusting that design. I appreciate that very much as someone who was a little baby in the community meetings back in 1984 and 1985. Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. I'm going to leave this up to the committee. If the committee thinks that we should write a quick letter thanking them for taking that there'll be no fence, thanking them for actually putting in a pickleball court, because I know we are on record saying that we needed a space for it. Or do you think that this does not need a letter? I will leave it to the committee. Any thoughts?
Does Parks want a letter, or do they feel adequately thanked?
Well, it's always nice to get a letter. If it's not too much trouble, we would certainly appreciate having a letter. But I leave that in your hands.
We can write a letter. Well, definitely, you guys deserve a letter on this.
A thank you letter.
Yeah. Do I have any motion?
Motion to write a.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, I think the motion is very clear. Thank you letter to Parks for their work on the park and the fence.
Great. Anyone second that?
Second.
Thank you, guys. May I also just add to the letter? I like Kat's suggestion. This is a really good opportunity, since there is going to be maybe more foot traffic with the pickleball courts, that we need recycling bins in this area now. I mean, we need recycling bins there.
Well, let me tell you that nobody is a bigger advocate for recycling than I am. And but there are complications in doing recycling in parks, and this probably requires a longer conversation at another time. But we can only do it I think we're now able to do it at Matthews Palmer only because the sanitation department has initiated a special project on that block at 45th Street. But without having a pilot project such as what sanitation has instituted on that block, we're really not in a position to do recycling. And I do not want to mislead people by putting in separate bins for recyclables and then not actually recycling them. So I'm going to be very honest with you that until such time as we're able to actually achieve a recycling program, I'm not going to push for having recycling in this park, as much as that hurts me, because I have spent a good part of my professional life arguing and working for the recycling program in New York City. But unfortunately, we have not been able to pull it off at parks for a whole bunch of reasons that I really don't want to go into right now.
Thank you, Steve. I wouldn't hurt though for us to mention it or mention.
No, it doesn't hurt.
To mention it, just to memorialize it, and then we can always reference the letter when we talk about it further down the road.
All right, we can come back to it. Yes.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to say to you at some point that we now have a true recycling program in our parks.
Thank you. And Parks, I think that's, oh, I'm sorry. Let's vote on that. All in favor of a thank you and just some minor notes, raise your hand. Great. Janine, do you have all that?
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Great. And then everyone opposed, or anyone opposed, I should say? Present not eligible, abstentions. Great, thanks.
Leslie, I think we should take Steve up on his more extended discussion of the reason Parks isn't doing recycling. I'm sure that there are institutional barriers and relationships between agencies, but of all the agencies in the city, it would seem to me that Parks should be recycling, and probably we should learn more about that.
I think that's smart. I think we can schedule that for a future meeting, definitely. Okay, guys, thank you so much, Parks.
All right, thank you.
That was a lot of updates.
Okay, all right. I
Thank
hope
you.
that Angela isn't upset with me for holding up the Hudson Yards presentation.
I know, I saw Angela pop on. Hi,
I want you guys to know that you're really fancy.
Yeah, God. I don't want to be on her bad side. Okay, take care.
Thanks, Steve. I know I saw Angela pop up after the Chelsea dog run. I'm like, oh, poor Angela. She's going to sit through another one.
Well, I only did that because I thought there were 2 other items before us, not 3, but I didn't want to rush anything. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I know, guys, I know it's 9 o'clock. I know we're late. It's a packed meeting, but well, I was going to say you're going to be dazzled, but I shouldn't even say that, right, Angela? I shouldn't. Anyway, this presentation is Marty and I, to give you guys more, we were briefed along with some other members of CB4, including Christine, JD, who else was on that? Jeffrey, about the plans for blocks 5 and 6, which I guess you're going to present today with some edits. But go ahead, Angela.
Yes, thanks everyone. I just want to mention our team real quickly. You have me, the president of Hudson Yards, and Lincoln and Sheehan, also from HYDC, Keith and Mike from WSP, the engineers, Liz and Judy from MVVA, and it sounds like a model crowd at MVVA that's working late on, I assume, another project, because they shouldn't be working on this right now. But glad they're listening in. And then obviously our partners, Stephen Hampson from New York City Parks, and Steve, who's also one of the partners. But I just wanted to mention the team because it's been phenomenal what has been done. And again, we're thrilled to finally be in a position to get in front of you guys. And it's been a kind of a long way to get to this point. And we are excited about the design. And but we, our next step is after talking to you all, is we want to engage PDC in the main features of the park prior to finalizing. And this will allow us to also further develop some of those specific design features, such as the play equipment and things like that. And that will then ensure that we have sort of a cohesive design product for a final approval. And so we are looking for support, letter of support in order to submit to PDC. And so hopefully you like what you see. And I'm going to ask Liz to, I guess, share her screen so she can present. I told her to, try to go through a little faster because I know it's getting a little late, but hopefully you like what you see.
Hi, thanks for staying up for this. Really appreciate it. We are really excited to be talking to you about blocks 5 and 6. This is just personally, I've been working on this project since 2008. So the fact that we're here is a wonderful thing. And we can't wait to bring this new park to all of you. So up here at where it's circled in pink are blocks 5 and 6. Block 5 is actually the smallest block of this 6-block park. And block 6 is almost an acre, which is very exciting. Just to remind anyone who doesn't know, this is a linear park from 33rd Street through 39th Street. It's between 10th and 11th Avenues. And one of the challenges of a linear park that is divided by streets is how to make it feel coherent and connected. And the big way that we've done that is that there is a continuity of material language that goes from one block to the next and forms. And you can see that in these sort of bean-shaped forms and this idea of creating an interior to these small blocks, but there's a variety of program. And so we have going from south to north, the main program of block 1 is the subway exit and lunch. Block 2 has fountains and large gathering spaces. Block 3 has a small play area and a cafe. Block 4 is really a garden space. And blocks 5 and 6, the program was developed as a result of feedback that we heard from the community. And here are some of the requests that we heard. There has always been a desire for a playground in this park, and we've been waiting to find the right spot, and block 6 is it. It's a good size. It only has streets on the north and south, but not on the east and west. And so it has a lot of opportunity for a great playground. It's always an ask for open space, considerations about topography and views to the south. Visibility is always something that we consider for safety. It has to feel open and welcome. A lot of discussion about trees and nature trails. And after tonight's conversation, I can really hear that. A water feature incorporating the slaughterhouse sculptures if possible, performance spaces, shared streets, and city bike stations. So that's a lot of program for less than an acre and a half. And so we've done our best to try to incorporate as much of it as we can. And a big way that we've done that is through an idea of layering things one on top of the next. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of the design here before I show the formal PDC slides, which are very diagrammatic. This is a model that we have in our office right now and we'll be submitting. And we're looking north from block 5, looking towards block 6. And I think that the big thing to see here, a couple things to note are block 5 is very small. It has streets on both sides. A big way that we're creating the space here is to really ring it in planting and take what we're calling the woodland walk as the main circulation coming right through it. So you immediately go into a park experience on this block. It brings you to a clearing in the center here, which is framed by marble seating and has a cloud fountain. And it takes you back out to the north. And the entire woodland walk has a lot of seating along it as well. For block 6, this is the playground block. This is the block that has a bathroom building here on the southeast corner. It has a maintenance building for the entirety of Hudson Park and Boulevard, which is tucked under the landscape in the north. And one of the important requests here was that this block be open to everyone in the community, even if it has a playground. And so that's a thing that we've worked quite hard on. And the reason that you see all these towers and bridges is so that you can have a lot of play value in a small footprint, interconnected, and still have the non-playground areas weave up and down through the park. And I'll show you some more model photos so you can see that more clearly. On block 6, as well as block 5, we're also just covering the edges in greenery so that you're always feeling like you're in as much of a natural space as possible in this very condensed area. Here we are looking at block 6, looking south, looking north to south. So this is the facade of the maintenance building that you're looking at the bottom of the screen. And a big goal of ours with the architecture was to really make it a part of the landscape. So you don't have buildings popping up all over the place. It's there in the landscape. And so you can see that we've wrapped it with plant beds, and we've made space for plant beds on the roof so that there's planting hanging over the facade. The elements just sort of embrace in around, and then these plant beds here can provide some shade for the seating at the top. So what you're seeing here is a small kid play area on the left, and then this is a bigger kid play area on the right connected down to the bottom. And then you can see this winding path, which is that woodland walk that continues from block 5 all the way up through block 6. The circulation keeps moving, and you can come back down to the roof of the comfort station and then make your way back down. So you can actually take a walk in a circuit even within this very small park block. If you don't want to go to the park and you just want to take a walk through the neighborhood, you can walk along the sidewalks on either side, which are quite generous, and there's a lot of planting on both sides. So you're still always in this park setting. A closer look at block 5 with the woodland walk and the clearing. There have been questions about street trees, so I'll just point this out here. We're on top of the Amtrak cut, so we can't have street trees everywhere. On this side, we have street trees. We're on firm ground. On this side, on this sidewalk on the west, there's no depth available, and so we can't dig a hole to put a tree in there. Here's a view of that woodland walk with all the benches that are a signature of the rest of the park moving through. The gray and the white indicate the granite block paving that we have in the rest of the park. Here's a view of that woodland walk coming into the clearing. And if anyone needs me to slow down, let me know, but I'm trying to keep it moving given the time. Another view of this clearing, and one of the things we were very excited about here is that this is a place that can be activated by water. So we're showing a cloud fountain here, and this paving pattern that's also very active. So if it's empty, it feels like there's a lot going on just because of the things that are in the space. But it can also be a wonderful place for gathering because it's all in the round. So you could have readings and performances here. Or it could just be, you know, for small groups to gather. And we really enjoyed the idea of having a place where you can have more casual forms of seating, where you can pull tables and chairs up to the stone blocks. And it seemed to be a very flexible area for gathering in the park. Something new here. Here we are at block 6 for a little bit of a closer look. We're looking towards the north. So here's where the woodland walk enters and makes its way up right through the middle. You have a play area here on the south, which is connected through these towers. We have a little more detail on these in the rest of the presentation, but they connect across a bridge to another tower. There are 2 other towers here with a connection at the top and all sorts of elements for play value at the bottom, a smaller kid play area up here on the upper right, and what we're calling the ruin walk that takes you across the top of the comfort station, which is meant to be like a rock outcropping. So we're using the same marble that we have in block 4, we're repeating it on block 5, but using it in a different way. And then when we get to block 6, we're trying to use it in a more raw fashion with these large stones that make the building feel more like a rock outcropping than a building sitting right there. Another view from the north looking south. Another gathering place here at the north end. We just showed a couple of tables and chairs, but this is a fairly decent sized space. And then there's additional seating on these granite stairs. Looking south from 39th Street. So as you can see that even though there are all these layers, there's a lot of good sight lines where you can see people always walking on the paths or in the different spaces as they layer up. This view south of the play areas. And this is a shot of the model looking across one of the plant beds again, so that there are very clear sight lines in and out of the park, even with the topography. And then this is at the entrance where you come in actually underneath this play bridge. In this view, you see that there are just railings on either side, but these would be enclosed play bridges, and they're really fun features. The top of the ruin walk, where we've tried to incorporate some of the facade elements from the slaughterhouses into a gardenscape at the top of the building. You can see a view down there. And then what that looks like from the southeast corner of the block. Lots of trees and greenery, seating along the edges, but then still good views of what's happening on the interior. And this is the woodland walk again, making its way down block 6. So we were able to really get you into a very natural space, but still with all of these program elements throughout. This is along the bridge that takes you to the top of the ruin walk on block 6. I think that part of the point of what you're seeing here is that there's, even in this very small space, there's a lot of variety of places to go, and you could spend quite a bit of time here and be discovering new things. The play areas, everything vertically overlapping. What you're seeing here in this image is these verticals that come down from this bridge. These all provide a lot of ground level accessible play, and that's a big focus of what we're working on, and we're going to continue to develop with Parks input. But all of these features have that as a central idea. And then the way that kids of different ages can see each other from different spaces is always a very positive thing in play areas. And this is the small kid play area again. This is called a play wall. I have pictures of it later in the presentation, but it's wonderful for imaginative play, and it's a great use of a small space because it doesn't have huge fall zones. And so we paired that with this sort of very gentle small mound, which for little kids, like a little thing that you can climb up and down is almost the best thing. And then the view of what happens when you get to the top of the woodland walk here. There's a lot of different types of seating on these granite stairs with play areas on either side. Behind us are tables and chairs, and then benches with backs and armrests and companion seating. So this part is the more formal PDC presentation, and I'm going to sort of move through it a little faster, but now that you have an idea of the design, I think that it'll make more sense. We always start with the project location. We're in Manhattan, and we're looking at the 5th and 6th blocks of the park. Importantly, we're on top of the Amtrak line, so you can see the cut in the ground here. As I've heard in the conversation tonight, there is a lack of park space, and so we're really happy to be bringing parks to this area, and particularly a recreation related to playgrounds. We are going to be surrounded by many tall buildings, and what that means to us in terms of design is making sure that there's a real sense of interiority for all of these play blocks. And there's a lot of activity, especially on 39th Street. So those are design challenges that we've been very, very conscious of. And then, of course, we're over this open cut, which no one should know about once the park is built, but it is something that we have to work very carefully with when we think about where to place different features. And that's where the cut is in the park. So you can see how much of it is actually over that structure. So this is the preliminary design plan. This is the plan that reflects the model that you just saw, and I'll go through it and sort of lay out all of the major elements that are in the park in more of a networked fashion. When you think about the way the land is formed, this is block 5 being cut along the north-south axis. We grade up to the center and then grade back down. So you have a gentle rise here. Everything is accessible. It opens up into this woodland clearing. You have good views out to the sidewalks, and then it takes you back down to the north. And then on block 6, there's a more substantial rise, and this is to hide the maintenance facility underneath the park. And we've tried to thread the needle on this so that the building is as small as it should be, but we still get enough rise to get over it. And it's become a wonderful excuse for all sorts of great design ideas and opportunities in the park. So for those of you who read topography, we just marked some of the spot grades to give you a sense of where things are going in terms of the up and down here. Low, high, low, low, up to high. The paving, as I said, is the granite block paving from the other blocks on the interior, and then meeting the New York City concrete on the sidewalks. We have a variety of seating, as in all the blocks. We have the pink are the standard wooden park benches with companion seating. We have some stepped stone seating in a few areas, particularly here in the clearing. We have lots of movable tables and chairs. There are plant rails and tree guards to help protect the planting, not just from dogs, but also from people. So this is all throughout, and these are coordinated around the different conditions that are in different parts of the project. Standard park lighting. This is one of those things that identifies this as a New York City park. We have the beep hole that's in the rest of the park, and we have our city street lighting as well. The woodland clearing here that I spoke about earlier is ringed by the marble block seating. And here's an image of where we've actually used this on another project, and you can see how it can be a really wonderful casual gathering place. and an extension of the language of block 4. And then the center of this block has this idea of a cloud fountain. There was a request for water features, and we thought this was a very beautiful way to have water without using too much of it, and to give it a presence in the space that seemed to work with the rest of the design. When you get into block 6, we have the marble used in the comfort station again. And this is a material, I know I'm talking a lot about marble, but we love this material. It comes from a quarry in Vermont. And the pieces that we really like are the pieces that don't tend to get used for countertops. And so we go to the tailings yard and choose these large sculptural stones. And we think that they're actually incredibly beautiful. And to be able to bring them up close to people, we think is a wonderful thing. So you can see that we're looking at large stones, and we're looking at working the facade so that it's like big stacked blocks with big joints, and it feels very muscular in the design. Within the comfort station, we have 2 bathroom areas, and then through the outside of the block here, you can access a mechanical and maintenance area for the park. There's also a drinking fountain that will be incorporated here. On the top of the comfort station, we've incorporated the ruin walk. And so this is a pretty small space, and because it is a building and it has parapets, we wanted to find a way to really pull it into the garden idea. So we pulled people away from the parapets by planting the edges and then retaining the soil and the plants with pieces of stone, and incorporating the elements from the slaughterhouses into this site. And they're quite big, and it's an amazing thing to be able to be up close to them. So you can see Alexia from our office here measuring one of them. So this is sort of a more intimate garden design where you're faced with these sort of oversized pieces that are meant to be on buildings, but now you can be very close to them. The play area. So the play area is composed of a couple of different places. This is the lower play area with these 3 towers, and connected by a suspension bridge and with a slide. And they're great for interior climbing. They're enclosed, so there's no danger of anyone falling out, but there's a lot of visibility through them. So you can see how you can see quite well through these. They're filled with all sorts of different imaginative play elements, both at the ground level and at the upper levels. Here we went with the idea of trying to make a mini New York City cityscape. One of the inspirations was when you're walking through the city and you see all the lights on in the apartment buildings, and there are like living rooms and Christmas trees and all the things that happen on all the floors to bring that to life for the kids, so they can come up here and find some of those things, and maybe find some unexpected things. So we have things like horses included here on one of the floors. And we're using this fire truck down here as a way to make accessible access to the upper level, as well as the bridge, which provides us accessible access to this level onto this slide. But those are details that we're going to be continuing to work on and focus on with the Parks Department. Now you can see that the bridge from the top of the ruin walk takes you in an accessible route to this slide, and then working on the ground level elements as well. On the upper play area, we're using these towers that are called Gorky Towers because they were first used in a place called Gorky Park, and they're connected by this very tall play bridge with hanging elements that provide ground level accessible play. These are great for climbing, and they provide a lot of excitement with tall slides. And these are also going to include accessible elements and ways to get to the slides. In the small kid play area, I mentioned before, we're using this play wall because it is very small. And the moment you put any object into it, there's a very large fall zone around it, and then you can't put anything else there. But because the play wall is this idea of enclosed play, you can have a lot going on. So here are some examples of the sorts of things that kids can do. They're great for imaginative play, and it's really incredibly appropriate for younger kids. But there's quite a bit of exciting pieces that can be included in it. And then in the middle, we've made a small slide mountain, which again, for small kids is sort of the most wonderful thing, just to sort of climb up it and then be able to slide down and engage with the topography. We have a number of surface materials. Some of them are poured in place, and then some of them are tiles in the high use areas. They can be swapped out for ease of maintenance. There's an elevated walk that makes sure there's an accessible connection from this upper small kid play area to the ruin walk and then over into these play bridges. We have drinking fountains, one at the top, and then again, one here incorporated into the comfort station on the south. And then we've been working with the Parks Department around controlled access, and right now we have gates at the main park entrances. So the entire block is a playground, and anyone can come in, whether or not they're accompanied by a child, and the children can play all throughout here. The very small kid play area is fully enclosed. The maintenance facility from the north, you can see how it's begun to get worked through with the architects, bringing a little reality to it. Here we're using a panelized system for the facade so that if there is any need to replace pieces, they can come off and come back on. We're looking at Corten steel so that it's something that can self-repair. This is something that there are some concerns that have been raised about, and we're continuing to research those and work with the bid and parks on those pieces. One of the things we liked about this, though, was the warm color, which really makes it recede. And then you can see the plan for what's happening inside the maintenance facility and how it is quite integrated into the park design. We actually literally took that small kid play area and lifted it up and reworked the circulation so that there could be more space for the program that's needed in that building. As with the other blocks, there are limitations on sun due to all the buildings that are around, and we've had to take this into account with the planting. It's not a new thing, but it's typical of these 6 blocks. And so what we've done is we have a lot of trees, but they're not heavy canopy trees. They have light, lacy canopies to let light through and to help make space. Many of the trees are trees that we've used on the other blocks, and then some of them here are new introductions. The trees that have been on the other blocks have these red asterisks by them. And then in addition to the deciduous trees, there are evergreen trees to continue to give a sense of the space. And there's a rich understory, but we do have the separation of the low understory and the high trees to maintain sight lines. That's the shrub and ground cover planting. We've introduced a lot of flowering plants since we first started working on these parks at the suggestion of the bid and the horticulturists who have been maintaining the parks. And it's been a really nice set of additions that we're trying to continue to include. So just to give you a visual smattering of what's going to be in here. And then we have a couple of renderings of what we expect everything to look like. So here we are at block 5 looking north, and you can see the clearing behind these trees and people sitting on the blocks and the entrance to this woodland walk and the view along the sidewalk. And then again, within block 5, looking back towards the clearing. And then this is from block 6, looking south along the woodland walk with the play towers and the play bridge crossing. Over here on the left is the bridge that connects the upper play area to the top of the comfort station and the ruin walk, and then can take you through to the play towers. And then here we are at the southern part of block 6 as you enter, with the comfort station on the right, then the play bridge, and then the woodland walk that you pass through and move up through the park along. And that's it.
Liz, thank you so much. I'm going to reserve comment. I think no, I'm not going to reserve comment. I think this is amazing. I mean, this is going to be such a gem in our area. But I'm going to let the committee go first, and then we can talk. Angela, you said you need a letter for PDC. Is that what it is?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go in order as I see them, and if you could take that down. I'm sure if someone asks to pull up a slide, that would be great. But thank you so much, guys. Brad.
Yeah, it's beautiful. A couple things. The bridge between the 2 towers looks a little bit like the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. I think maybe it should be look at the GW and the colors. That's just one thing to consider. Second thing, this is the environmental board also, and Marty will tell you, we're going to ask, we'd like some solar powered lights. It doesn't seem to be anything related to green energy here. So we'd like to throw that out there to you. And also, like at the meatpacking district in the bid, on the other side of the block, I think it was number 5, you have one side of the block, you have trees, and I understand the platform, but we should have large planters to put trees in. I think that could solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Liz, Angela, does that sound familiar? The solar lights, we had a long conversation about when I brought it up when we had the briefing.
And we have looked into it. Chihan from our office actually reached out to Parks and DOT because we realized will be their park once we build it. And then obviously the bid will be maintaining. And so we were asking them, what have they been doing in other parks? So Chihan, are you there?
Yeah, so we did a little research on this and appreciate the heads up from Leslie about this. DOT maintains all the lights for parks in a maintenance agreement, and they've been piloting solar panels in other places around the city, but they don't have a policy for it at this point. And so at this point, we have to design to their standards. That being said, we're going to follow up with their pilot, and I think that's something that you guys should definitely note in your letter.
Yes, because it's 2027. I think we have time to figure it out.
100%. That will, Chihan, thank you so much for the update. It will definitely 100% be in our letter. And I know, I just want to note before I get to Christopher, Angela, guys, there were a few elements that were in the briefing that are not here, like the lighting, and there were certain things, I think, because Angela, do you want to explain, because I guess that are going to be further, there were some questions about with parks.
Right. Well, the whole design, is all things are being done concurrently with what we're designing the deck below, we're designing the park above. And part of it is, we have to kind of design each one, but each one affects the other one, the top and the below, because we have requirements from Amtrak and, as well as obviously DOT Bridges, who will also be a partner on this. We've designed to a certain portion, and then as we, then once we kind of have the larger pieces set in place, we're, putting in more like the specialty lighting and, some other, the playground equipment, but some of those things still need to be developed. But I think what our hope is, and what we've talked to Parks about, and Liz had mentioned that, they really want, that we really need to obviously keep designing and get it to a preliminary or, design in terms of the play equipment and things like that, as well as the special lighting, which needs, examining of the photometrics. We had proposed something, some higher moonlights, but we really need to go through the photometrics to make sure that's the right type of lighting. I think you guys had brought up some concerns about it as well. So we want to make sure that's the right lighting that's going to do the right for the park. But we want to still bring the larger features of the park to PDC, because we really need to get sort of a sign off from them, or hear their comments and feedback, so that, because the buildings and the materials and some of the play structures and where they're located also do affect the structure below. And, if things get moved around, it could really, it not only have to, change things that are granted, we really need to get those kind of things set in place so that we can keep moving with development of the more specific design features. And so that's where we felt like, well, we did really need more time. We're at the same time, we want to get this park up and running as fast as possible. And just with all the things we're having to do with Amtrak and with DOT Bridges, and it takes time. So we're doing these things kind of concurrently. So we'll bring up those other design features, and then we can bring them back to you guys. And that's sort of the plan.
Yeah, I'm probably looking ahead here, but those specific design features will be brought back to us once, I guess, once they're for review, once they're fully developed, right? Like you said.
Right, yeah, and because we'll have to go back to PDC once they're fully reviewed, so, but again, we're just really looking for PDC to, hopefully love the comfort station and the shapes of the buildings and,
The
that
main
kind of,
elements.
the
Yeah.
main elements, yeah.
Okay, Christopher.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. First, I just want to bring out into the forefront of this that we're incredibly privileged to be talking about a park in Hudson Yards, considering where the original funding for Hudson Yards came from. We're talking about a park in between towers of grand capitalism that's being funded when it should have funded West Harlem and Washington Heights and the development of those Black and brown communities. So let's put that into scope as we talk about this right now, that we have a park and there are communities that are starving for funding. So while I appreciate the thought, let's consider that all the way through. Chairs and tables, especially in that low end. I hope that that the tables are going to be consistent in some end to what was put in for programming in previous large parks like Washington Square Park and Union Square Park. If you can consider chess and checker tabled chairs for recreation outside, that'd be great. Just because some people may have Wi-Fi, they may want to put their laptop out there. And other times people may not want to think about work at all. And maybe families don't want to think about work at all. And chess and checkers is a low hanging fruit program opportunity to tables there, if you consider that. Secondly, I would like to ask why towers? It just seems like there's so much movement and motion and flow in the majority of the design that was presented, and then all of a sudden we get these very human 90-degree cornered towers. I didn't know whether or not it was like 99% of the presentation worked for me, and then those towers popped up, and like Brad spoke, it was like, why do we have a bridge that looks like the Bay Bridge? Why do we have towers that looks like we're trying to build tiny Jason Batemans in our playgrounds? I just, please give me the logic to those, like the tower design, and whether or not you're open to changing it to be more fluid and more cohesive to the greater presentation that you put forward. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. David?
It was a fantastic presentation, by the way, and I think it's just a spectacular design. 9 points are very minor. The cloud fountain, what happens to that on a windy day?
I don't know if I'm supposed to answer questions during this.
I give you permission.
Oh, no,
Okay.
of course, yes.
Sure.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys presented it to us, and it showed us the examples and one of the reasons I think we were doing the mist fountain is you could keep it low and it still has this beautiful effect of it. That's what we liked about when they brought it to us. Also, when it's off, you don't have to necessarily have it on windy days, and then there's no basin that's empty and looks like a fountain that's not turned on. The idea is then you could just walk around and do other things in the fountain when it's turned off. That's what we were I think they were trying to get there. So there will be days that it may be up high, it could be adjusted to the wind. Is that what, Liz, is that part of what you were talking about? And I know they have been Flushing Corona.
Right, it's quite low, so it's less susceptible to wind. We have the area have a lot of protection from wind because of the stones and the trees. But also what Angela is saying is true, that it's not spraying a lot of water. It creates this cloud. And so if there is wind, it doesn't toss it everywhere. But then also, if it is actually just a really windy day and it needs to be off, then it just feels like an open plaza and it doesn't feel as though something's missing from it.
One of the pleasures of an urban fountain is the noise that it makes, which distracts you from the surrounding noise. I wonder if you could do sort of a hybrid fountain that, also has flowing water, not necessarily jets shooting up into the air, but a component that makes some noise and, would still be there if the mist fountain needs to be turned off because of wind. Just an idea put out there.
We're trying to limit the amount of water we use here, in part because we're just next to the Amtrak cut. And so there are limitations on what can go below grade in terms of recirculation vaults and containers for the water. So that was one of the reasons we were looking at something like mist or fog, because it's a very low water use approach, and it allows us to run it without a lot of extra equipment and vault space.
Okay, my second point has to do with just the size and nature of trees. I understand you're building over Amtrak. It sounded like there were some places perhaps where you could put larger trees if need be. And one of the things about this site is, New York street trees don't tend to grow very large because they don't get a lot of sunlight throughout the day. There's so much blockage of light from buildings. But this row of small parks is going to get a lot of sunlight in midday. So there's an opportunity to really create some very large trees, which have their own appeal. The High Line right now is extending its northern spur along 30th Street. And that extension was intentionally designed to hold more soil so that it could have larger trees than you can find on the rest of the High Line. And that openness to the south also is going to make this very hot in the summer. And I'm wondering if, a taller, more robust tree, more broadleaf, that's less about letting direct sunlight filter down between leaves, but provided true shade and maybe more of a sense of shelter. We just got a wonderful presentation about planting trees in the city that had the notion of the tree canopy. And there's something kind of magical about being under that tree canopy and dwarfed by the trees, and perhaps that could provide some shade, which is very much needed in hot and humid New York in the summer. Would you consider looking into that?
Yeah, so absolutely. I want to respond to a couple of things that you said. One of them is the desire for large trees. And I think that is definitely our desire. And we have done a lot of work to make sure that we have good soil that's going to go in, which is the basis and the foundation for growing really good trees. A lot of soil volume, we're asking for, we call it structural soil, but there's soil where the plant beds are, but also underneath a lot of the walking surfaces. So there's a lot of places for the tree roots to expand to, and that it makes a huge difference when it comes to tree size. We'll be looking for really good, healthy trees to begin with, and trees that want to put on a decent amount of height in terms of their type of species. And you're right, there is a lot of sun right now, but once all of the buildings go up, it's going to transition to more shade. And so we're very conscious of choosing species that can tolerate both conditions and still provide a really, like you say, robust, comfortable canopy and have a sense of enclosure. So if I misled you, I apologize, but I think that we're trying to do the things that you're asking for. And I realized I wasn't sure about responding to everybody, and I didn't respond to Chris's comments about the play towers and questions about why towers. And there is a lot of logic there. The blocks are very limited in their space, and those play areas, while they might look big in that model, before you know it, you put like 2 pieces of play equipment in and you don't get very far. Or if you want to have a slide or a climber, you're stuck with not very many elements. And so the idea of the towers is that you can get a lot of space and a lot of different types of play into them. And they're imaginative, which the kids is great for children. It's a very positive thing, but they also provide climbing. So you're able to hit a lot of different points of play, of the important aspects of play all at once. And so that's why we've gone with towers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Candace?
Hi, thank you there. Thank you for the presentation. It was very, very detailed. I did have a couple questions regarding your comfort station. It was 1 with 2 restrooms, you said, or 2 separate. Because this is a very big area a lot of people are coming into here. Maybe we can think about adding like an all gender or mother's room as well, kind of option for that. And also gives more access to more restrooms. Also the drink fountains, there was only one on top, I believe. Maybe add a couple more drink fountains. If the kids are running around in this play area, they're gonna need more than just one drink fountain. And then I'm unsure to speak up on, there is going to be a lot of residents and just a lot of talk about dog parks today. Has there a thought about putting a dog park in there? It's going to come up in that area sooner or later. And maybe that's something, I don't know if the committee wants to discuss that. I'm just thinking there is a lot of people that live in that area. There are no dog parks in that area for the dogs to run. So just thoughts. Thank you again.
I can hit at least the first two of those in terms of the comfort station. I feel like I should defer that to the architects to see what we can do. But we do have the 2 bathrooms there, the 2 entrances for bathrooms, and then there are also bathrooms on block 3. So there are a number of different places to have access to bathrooms in the park at this point, which is really good. In terms of the drinking fountains, I think I was rushing a little bit, and there is a drinking fountain at the top, but there's also a drinking fountain on the exterior incorporated into the comfort station. So there are 2 on that block.
I would also add that each drinking fountain has 2 spouts, one for accessibility and one for like full height people.
Thank you. Sorry, one more question. How high are these towers? What was the height on it? And how is that going to be? I'm just thinking the vessel, and I don't want it to be another vessel where people can't access it. Just if it's kids coming in wheelchairs, like, are we going to make it where it is accessible for all?
Yes.
And what is exactly, how tall is this going to be?
I don't know that's the height off the top of my head, but a big part of actually the bridge conversation is it gets into accessibility. So because of the circulation on the block, you can come through the top of the ruin walk into one of the towers across the bridge if you're in a chair and you need to use that route. And then you have access to slides, and then you have access to the entire interior of that level of towers. If you depending on the abilities of the children who are using it, some children may want to have something that involves upper body strength. And so there are spiral nets and ways of transferring up into the towers as well that we're working in. That was one of the things that we're working on with the fire truck. And then there are also just an abundance of ground level play areas that would be for children of all abilities. It's also nice for kids to be able to have places where they can just like a place that they've found. And that's something that, I mean, parents can see them. It's not like they're in a secret place, but they think they found it. And so that's one of the fun things about the towers as well.
Candace, does that answer your question? Thank you. Janine, before we go further, can you bring over Tina? She was bumped off.
Sure.
Thank you. And I don't know if she's raising her hand because she has a comment or question, or she's raising her hand to come over. Tina, can you hear us? Oh, there you are. You're muted, Tina.
Yeah, thanks. My screen is a little crazy, but that's okay. Thank you for bringing me over. Real quickly, you probably have an answer to this, but marble, how slippery it can be. Are those marble slabs on the ground going to be honed in any way?
They're going to be water jet finish. That's what we've done in the past when we put them on the ground. There are a number honed we usually use for a seating surface because that's what you want to touch and not like rip your clothing with. And water jet actually is a very beautiful sparkly finish, and it's got the right roughness coefficient for the ground.
Fantastic. I knew you'd have a great answer.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, I guess I'll finish it up, I guess. I think this is fantastic. I think this park is going to be a go-to must-see type of kids park. I know when I was my daughter is 10 now. When I was younger, the mothers or the parents would Google what the best parks in New York City or best parks in Manhattan, best playgrounds, I'm sorry, in Manhattan. And then there was a list of 10 of them and we would go and hit them. And this surely will be on there. Just knowing what kids like and play on. I think the imaginary play area is genius in a park. I think it's great. I think it's going to be used. I think the towers and the bridge is phenomenal. The height is great. Kids love to, to like run through it. They like to imagine. I think actually that element is probably makes it. I think that element is a wonderful element. The bridge and the way it's constructed. Also the way you design the park, how it goes high-low. I think I mentioned this when we had the briefing that I was in Boston over the summer and there was Martin's Park, which is very new by the seaport. And I was so impressed because it went up high and down low. And the kids, it was just an amazing place. If you wanted to sit and be quiet, there was a place, but if the kids wanted to run, that was also available. And I think not only did you do that and accomplish that in this park, but I think you did it not losing sight lines that I think that other park does lose. I think the sight lines are there, which is so important when you're there with children. What else? I think that was it as far as there's just a few things I did want to ask, but overall, I mean, it's an amazing design. It really is. And I think it's just going to be a wonder. And a real asset to our area. And I think people know here that I'm not usually as effusive. Well, maybe sometimes I am, but I really am enthusiastic about this park. I do want to reiterate the solar and renewable lighting element. I know you guys are looking into that, but I think that is like it's almost a must, if not a must, some sort of renewable energy. Number one, I think Christopher hit on Wi-Fi, which I think is important. I don't know what the plans are for Wi-Fi, but there might be people there with their laptops or something. I think that would be great. A few things that were mentioned in the briefing, I just want to also mention it for the letter. The marble, I know there was some concerns about all the marble that was being used, and that was a corporate cold look for a park. I know that was mentioned by some other members of our community board. Did you go back and look at that? Because I know there was a request to take a look at that if you guys were married to that material, and if there was a maybe more park friendly material and not like that corporate lobby marble material.
Well, I guess we're hoping that the way that it's being used and the types of blocks that are being chosen don't feel like corporate lobby. Nothing's going to be polished up. A lot of the stones are meant to be embedded into the plant beds, so that they really do have landscape growing right over and into them. That's a big part of it. That there are places where they do have formal geometries, but a lot of it we want to use, especially in that pavement and on the comfort station, would be much more like you were finding these stones coming out of the ground. And I can understand where that viewpoint comes from. And I guess the perspective that we have and that we're trying to bring into the design is from when we've gone to the quarry and we've seen these hillsides just covered in the broken marble blocks. And it's incredibly beautiful. And when you get to see all the veneration up close, it just feels like a real gift to be able to be close to it. So I guess it's a difference of opinion, but I hope that description is helpful to the people who are concerned.
Thank you for that. And I think my last, the one thing I think that a few members of the community board suggested that there would be some sort of water feature in the kids area. It doesn't have to be a big fountain, but because it gets hot and the kids are going to be running around in the summer, just something to cool off even the feet or something. I know that was mentioned. I don't know if you have
that. Right. We think that would be great, and we're going to try to incorporate that in.
That would be wonderful.
We'd like to.
Yeah, that would be great. I can go on about how wonderful this is, but that's okay. People will be sick of it, I'm sure. cohesiveness.
Thank you all so much. It really it means
It's
a
really,
lot.
I see Marty has his hand up. Marty?
Yes, I want to underline, we have a colleague on this board who always raises the issue about environmental stuff before I do, and I'm very glad he does, Brad. Thank you so much for that. I want to reiterate some of what he said because it's important and you didn't talk about it a whole lot. Lighting we've talked about. I hope you'll be able to figure out some solar issue for lighting. Water we haven't talked about, and I know you're on slabs, but you haven't mentioned anything about water management. You mentioned about keeping water use low, which is a good thing, but you haven't mentioned anything about water retention and what you do with excess water.
Jan,
Yeah,
did you have
I
something on
was
that?
gonna let him. I was gonna let Martin finish first, but I can
Okay.
address the water
Well,
question if you like.
the other point, it's also water. In other parks that this committee has looked at, the water fountains have had bottle filling features, and the images that you showed didn't have that. I don't run to parks to fill my bottle. I usually come with a full bottle, but that may be something you should consider. But more important is the water management.
Right. So I'll let Liz address the water fountain question, but in terms of water management, so I'm sure I don't have to talk about the benefits of trees and whatnot in terms of water management, but also on top of that, we also have retention tanks underneath the park so that any runoff, any water is retained and only released back into the sewer system at a measured rate so that it doesn't overwhelm the sewer systems.
I hope you'll talk to the High Line for their extension between 31st Street and 34th Street. They haven't put that feature in. I hope they will. I'm very glad you're doing that. Thank you. And I think you should publicize it. It should be part of your presentation.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you. Christopher, is your hand up or is that from before? Christopher? No. Okay, so there will be a letter coming out if someone can make them. Oh, sorry, David, go ahead.
Yeah, not to contradict you on the white marble, but actually I think that's a very interesting feature because it's so unusual. And I think it could look just terrific, and I don't think it would look corporate if it's kind of treated in a sort of raw way. And it does sort of suggest ancient ruins. I don't know if you remember the plaza around the City Core building in Long Island City, which is planted with white birches. And it's always such a surprise to see that whiteness in the city, and it's kind of an unusual choice for trees. And I think sometimes it's very good to have something that's really out of the ordinary and striking. So I would vote for the marble.
David, I'm really glad you brought that up because it was mentioned by another member of our community board. And I wanted to pose that to this committee as far as what they thought. So I'm glad you said that. And when we go over the points of the letter, we can talk about that further. So thank you. So guys, do I have a motion with points that we can edit for a letter?
I'll motion that we do.
Thank you, Tina. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, David. So I guess the points would be, and anyone chime in. We're overall so pleased with this, and it's been many years, and that we're seeing a plan, and that we know there'll be another plan coming with more detail. But this is going to the PDC, and we will talk about the renewable energy aspect. We will talk about the Wi-Fi. We will talk about the water feature for children. Anyone else but David have comment on the marble, like or dislike? Because we can put in, we don't have to mention it at all. But I know that was brought up by, I wanted to be true to the discussion that others asked, elements that others asked about. But if there's no objection, we don't have, I mean, personally, I thought the marble was, not at all problematic. But if others feel differently, then I would certainly mentioned in the letter. Larger, consider larger trees for a broader canopy, right, David? You were saying we'll mention the larger trees.
Although it sounds like that's being addressed already, but maybe just make sure
As
that
a
there are
bullet
larger.
point.
Yeah.
As a bullet, yeah, we can mention as a bullet point, right? I think bottle filling fountains. Liz, I think you were going to mention bottle filling, or if we can mention, we'll put it as a bullet point as minor. Again, when we get into detail with it, I'm sure we'll have another opportunity, and you guys just want something for the major, right, design of this.
Yeah, I don't think we have any problem doing that. I think we just need to make sure we source the right product, and we work with all the people we have to check on with finding the right one. But that seems
Tree planters on
like
the
a great
western
idea.
sidewalk that can't have trees put in.
Got it.
Might not be tree planters, it might be shrub planters.
We'll have to check that actually with the bid and DOT, because I think the bid maintains the parks. And so I think the reason it's not typically shown is it sort of waits for the development of and then it's, done by the person that's building the building next to it. But we will bring it up because we can, see if that's something that we can work, that it could be maintained by the bid. But they typically, so we're within the park limits. So
We can put it as a bullet point, and then what, we can go into detail later. If not, we can see how it pans out. And then of course we will put we will note all the positive aspects and of the design. Am I missing anything, guys?
No red bridge.
No red what?
No red bridge.
It should look like the GW. This is New York, not San Francisco.
Can we make it gray?
Yes, we can make it not red.
If we're billing it, it should look like the GW, that's all. But
Brad wants to take the color away from the children.
we can make it bluish color, right? Because I think they painted the
a
one of the
bluish,
bridges like some type of blue.
right, Brad? Bluish is more GW bridge, right?
listen, I leave that to the experts, but when I looked at it and when I was standing there, it looked like the Golden Gate Bridge. So that's not good.
Some kind of color would be great.
Yeah, blue, that would be nice. Okay, guys, I think that's it. Can we have a vote, all in favor of this letter? Sure, raise of hands. Thank you. Hands down. All opposed? Present not eligible. Abstentions. Great. Thank you, guys. I know you waited a long time.
Leslie, I'm sorry, I didn't get Christopher's vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't, he might have stepped off. Christopher, can you hear me?
I vote in favor. My computer and my internet's just a little bit weak.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Really, really great, thorough presentation.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
It's been a long and hard haul, so we really appreciate the.
You're getting there. You're almost there. You're almost
Great.
there.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, guys, one more thing on the agenda. And this is actually time sensitive, so we can't put this off. It is unfortunately Lowell can't be here, but he did furnish, I don't know if you guys saw it. It was put in the, Janine was put in the Dropbox today, right?
Yes, this afternoon.
Okay, I am just going to pull it up. It is about our response, or our initial response to the US Army Corps of Engineers, and that very multi-layered, in-depth, actually more, I was gonna say proposal, but more than one plan. But they do have a preferred plan for their moving forward on their coastal resiliency. I don't have, I'm trying to find the letter. Janine, you sent it, right? Or Lowell?
While you're pulling it up, while you're pulling it up, I have a printout of it. And I think Lowell has written a fairly comprehensive letter describing the project. He objects to the 20-foot wall. He says it would undo 2 decades of development of the Hudson River Park. So he's very clear about what the objection to the wall in our district would be. And then I'm skipping down it a lot. And as you pull it up, Leslie, if you see something I missed, go ahead. What I particularly like in his letter is at the very end, he said that we urge the Army Corps of Engineers to come up with a resiliency plan that can be deployed when a storm is impending, but otherwise will not cut off our residents from the largest park in the district. So he's not just saying no, he's saying do something to think about in his letter, do something to think about a storm mitigation when a storm comes up. And you know, the Army Corps in its 5 plans or 6 plans does have some that don't require building a wall in our district. They include multi-billion-dollar projects like an Afsluitdijk, excuse me, that's the Dutch dike that goes over the North Holland, but they're thinking of something that's south of the Verrazzano Bridge and in Long Island Sound. But he doesn't say all that. I'm just saying that he says think of alternatives, and I think that's the right way for us to go. We're not the experts. We shouldn't tell them what to do. So I actually think that he blasted out a really good letter.
I think so too. I would like to add that there's going to be further talk of design features, because there's no design features. I would like to add the use of green infrastructure, if anything, unless we don't want to go that deep, guys, unless we just want to kind of our initial letter saying we don't want the wall, end of story. I have been attending many of these meetings, and like I said at exec, 99.9% of the talk of this has nothing to do with our district. You know, this is a citywide, actually multi-state plan. So there's talk about a lot of stuff. You know, our whatever 20, 30 blocks and a wall is not on the top of their list, but they are very open, in fact, inviting us to disagree, come up with other solutions, and they're encouraging us. They always say don't hold back, so I don't think we should. I would like to mention outline funding and add some visuals, because they did provide after they presented to us, they did subsequently provide visuals of what a wall would look like more accurately than some of the photoshopped versions that are going around, which actually it looked very much like the Photoshop versions, but it was what they provided.
It didn't have the graffiti.
Without the graffiti. Roberta?
I just wanted to clarify the difference or the distance between what Marty just said about the different plans from the Army Corps of Engineers and then what the letters that Lowell wrote says, which is that the Army Corps of Engineers should come up with a different resiliency plan. So it sounds like they have alternative plans that would not be disruptive. And so perhaps there should be a sentence in there that says either come up with a new plan or choose one of the various other plans that the Army Corps of Engineers has already proposed that are not disruptive and do not obscure the access to the Hudson River Park.
This is starting to get in. You're not wrong. It's starting to get into really complex stuff. I was at a meeting in the Bronx where they were talking about the objections that they had of the minutia that as the plan would affect them. And I have no doubt that all the various districts that are looking at this plan would. And I think starting to tell them what plan to select as opposed to talking about how the plan affects us is starting to, unless I'm misunderstanding you, is getting into muddy water.
I'm just saying select, either come up with a new plan or select a different plan. I don't believe that there was a discussion. The discussion's agnostic to which of those, so long as it does not curtail access to Hudson River Park. I think that that was the message that I took away from our last conversation. I'm, and again, agnostic, but just there are plans. We're not saying you must come up with a new plan from scratch, just new plan or one of the plans that you've proposed. I know this sounds really semantic. It just
No, I think it's right. And I think Roberta's right. And Marty, I will disagree with you a little bit. I think it is our place to say, you know, we don't like this or we want something different. And I think Roberta is absolutely right. And I think there's a lot of, this is just a draft. We're not going to send this letter as it is. I mean, you know, there's going to be a lot of wording changes. There's going to be some adds and takeaway and edits. But Roberta, in addition to what you said, I remember specifically asking at one of the meetings, can we mix and match plans even? So we don't, and they said, yes, we can. So it's not even like it's this plan or this plan or this plan. They said there's going to be a lot of puzzle pieces that are and moving parts that maybe we take some of this plan, some of this plan. Obviously, it all has to work. But they said there's definitely room for that.
I get all that. You're both right, but the way he wrote it, I don't mean to defend his writing, but he says, come up with a resiliency plan that can be developed when a storm is impending. And that, I think, unless I'm wrong, captures what you're both trying to say. Anyway, I don't mind your messing around with the language to be more specific. I'm not objecting to that.
If
I'm just
open to the friendly amendment, I would appreciate it, only because I think it's important to just say we are open to a thing that is feasible, that the Army Corps of Engineers is proposing. We're not saying no wall, like we're not participating with this. Like it's a genuine engagement with the process that I think is really valuable.
Definitely. And just so you know, Lowell is just writing a draft for us. It's a very rough draft. So we can play with this definitely, and include, like, you know, he didn't include some of the, you know, the, funding for it, or if we can't,
the funding is astronomical.
it's crazy. Yeah, it is. I think the main point though is, do we all agree that we are just going to say no again for the wall, or at least a permanent, fully erected wall at all times?
Have you all seen the image of that wall? I mean, I can throw it up on the share screen if you like.
No, it's okay. I think we had it last meeting, at the meeting when the gentleman from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Not the one with the graffiti. Oh, that was a cool one.
That's the one we threw up.
No, here's the one that no, that's the park. Sorry. There it is. Do you have it?
No, I don't see any screen sharing. I mean, go ahead.
That's it. That's what we saw.
Yeah, well, that's the newest one.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one that they provided.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So,
Pretty ugly.
that's unbelievable. Yeah, so that's what we are. Oh, sorry. That's what we're going to go full steam ahead on, as far as saying thank you, but no thank you. I mean, there's some language that, you know, that is used in this draft about, you know, cutting off views would decrease livability in the district. I mean, you know, we're gonna have to massage some of the wording, which I think will be amenable, but if anyone had any specific wording ideas, I know, Roberta, what you did, that's great, and that will be incorporated. If anyone else had anything that we are missing, I can work on this, or have Lowell, or I would love to take any suggestions. Christopher.
This is in regards to the helicopter area. I'm sorry.
34, like the 34th Street area and down.
Okay. I apologize, but like I said, my internet's just a little.
No, that's okay.
It's just really in and out. So I was just trying to figure out what the line item of business was, whether or not it was old business or new business.
This is all, so we discussed this 2 months ago, and we had a presentation from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, a very.
That's right. That's right. This is what came from the U.S. Okay, the Army Corps of Engineers in the Borough President's office. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for context.
Yeah, no, of course. So listen, I think when this goes to, we'll massage, like I said, massage the wording. I think when this goes to full board, guys, and I just want everyone, I think everyone's going to want to put in their 2 cents as far as maybe getting a little more detailed about the greenway or about this or about that. I think we should, as a committee, stick to what we thought, unless there's opposition. Let's just say no to the wall right now with this wording, because if we start getting into detail about what could be or detail of a greenway, it's kind of saying, okay, well, we're amenable to the wall, but this is where it should be, or this is how it should be, or that maybe a different way. I think this is going to be a many, many years in the making. And I think we should come out strong and come out no against the wall. My gosh, I sound like it's a border, but so
and not get confused by other issues is what you're trying to say.
Yes, I don't want to get confused. Exactly. I don't want to say no, but type of thing. And if anyone disagrees, I would love to hear another opinion on that. Unless everyone agrees, we can kind of vote and maybe come to terms on just editing this letter the way it is with a little bit massaging and some tweaks.
I appreciate that.
Anyone? No? Okay, great. A motion to draft this letter with the tweaks we and Roberta's suggestion and some other adds.
I make that motion.
Second.
Thank you, guys. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Lower hands. Any opposed? Present not
Leslie, it
eligible.
looks like there is one hand up in attendees.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
gosh.
about to mention that. I'm gonna bring Sally Bowman over.
Oh, Sally, I am so sorry. I missed your hand. I closed up my Zoom screen. Thanks, Janine. I like to be vigilant on that too. Sally, I don't know if, oh, good, you're over. Sally, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi,
Oh,
how are
great.
you?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for waiting through such a long meeting to get to this topic. Appreciated. Go ahead.
No worries at all. Thank you so much for promoting me into this so I could speak really quickly. My name is Sally Bowman and I'm with Metro Flood Defense. And we met with Jordan yesterday, actually, and he was going to introduce us to Janie and we just didn't have time. And so he's going to do it tomorrow. I wanted to let you guys know a few things. I have a letter template. You don't have to use it, but it's actually a really important template and you'll see why. It's almost like a Mad Lib. And it's based on what the Army Corps wants to see. When they get letters, they either put them into the box, and they may have told you this too already, of things that will get promoted, put in, and are really considered, and things that won't. And so I do want to let you guys know, it's very important actually. They want hyper local response. So nobody on this call should feel that because you are concerned with your particular community board, that your voice is not as important. Our mission, and I'm also with the Storm Surge Working Group. And I just want to say, Martin, thank you very much, because that's our picture with the graffiti. Our team at I'm with Metro Flood Defense, but I'm also a member of a coalition called the Storm Surge Working Group. And our working group put that together. And thank you. But it's really important. I'm going to send this to you guys tomorrow because they do want you to say, we don't want this. And it's perfectly fine to say, and in fact, it's important to say a solution, what you think. And you can say, we don't want the wall. It cuts our access off to the waterfront. It, is an eyesore, whatever it is that speaks to you personally and as a group. And then you should say, we think a solution should be something that is not on our shoreline, if that's how you feel. Like, you have to decide. And it may be also on this call, obviously, I've been listening with actually really a lot of enjoyment hearing about the park and the dog park and all that kind of stuff. Clearly there's a lot of agreement, but also everyone has their own particular opinion. And the Army Corps and the Colonel has made clear that they want organizational response, but they also want individual response. So it's very important for every person on this call and every person in your community board area to understand you should put a letter in from all of you, but it's quite easy, especially when I give you this template, to put your own in as well. And that will be much more powerful. So both should be done. And you can also put in, because I asked a question, I was just on a meeting before this. I said, listen, I have a lot of my life has lived in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is not New York City. The rest is lived in New York City. I have had flooding damage and loss in both places because of my work. Our mission is the entire New York metro regional area. So we're very, very concerned about what we call climate redlining. That's not something that's affecting your community, but there are dozens of communities. 37% of the regional New York, New Jersey area is not even included in the TSP, which is the tentatively selected plan. So Roberta, with what you were asking, they do have those 5 plans. This is their tentatively selected. It is not their selective. So you can say, Martin mentioned the offshore barriers. That's plan 2. You can say, hey, we like plan 2, but we think we'd really like to see something that's more layered. We want some green infrastructure in there. We want to see the rain gardens. We want to see whatever it is that's important to your community and to put that in there. So you'll see with the template, and I'll send over 2 other things you can look at. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I'll send that all tomorrow. Jordan, like I said he's going to put us in touch with Janie. I'll send it all over. You guys will have it. You can take a look at it, but this is really the Army Corps commenting 101 information that you'll need to have the most effective letter. And just from what you've said, it sounds like you're pretty much there, but it's just very clear there are certain things you have to put in there. So again, just want to reiterate, it's not out of line to be hyper specific where you are, and it's also not out of line to suggest the solution you want, and it's super important to tell them why. So that's just what I wanted to let everyone know. So thank you so much.
Sally, may I ask you a question? Thank you so much. If you could send that to Janine, the template,
Yes.
it would
Yes.
very, very helpful. And it's funny, I was laughing with some other members that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, it actually sounded like they wanted us to disagree with their plan. Like they were so encouraging, like, it's okay, disagree, like, say it loud and strong. And we were like, do they want this plan? Like, it was the way they said it was, and saying it over and over again. So
yeah, Leslie, we're starting to feel this as well. I mean, our storm surge working group, we've had members who've been working on this for 30, 40 years. This is nothing new. It's a collection of physical oceanographers, engineers, architects. These are absolutely high level experts in their fields, world renowned. And, we're at Metro Flood Defense, we're a nonprofit, but we work closely with them because we're very much wanting scientific based solutions. And we're also very much about equity. There's a lot to unpack with the Army Corps. They have very specific guidelines they need to follow. They are beholden to those, whether personally members would like to include other things. And one of the things that I will include is somebody brought up the cost of these things. These are, between $50 and $100 billion projects. That's a lot of money, but you take the damage from Sandy and Ida, add it together, there you go. That's how much money the most expensive project costs. And you look at that, their cost benefit analysis, they can only put for their costs, the cost of replacing current infrastructure at its current condition. So I always use the example of the Romer Shoals Lighthouse, which is the furthest south lighthouse in York Harbor. It is still working. It is not manned anymore. It had serious damage over the years, and it had a metal plate where the door was. After Sandy, it almost got knocked off its foundation. A nonprofit called Romer Shoals, after it, was given money by the federal government. It was between $4 and $7 million to repair it because it has a working light. It's used by all the ships that come in. They were not allowed to use a penny of that to buy a door because there wasn't a door before the storm. They had to put a metal plate back. So this is what the Army Corps, their own rules are kind of holding them to. And it's super important because they can't take into account the costs that I think everybody in the community would agree to. Most of us are sort of the real costs: loss of human life, economic loss for businesses, homeowners, things that close down, the loss when children can't go to school and can't get educated because their schools have been flooded. All of these things, they can't take into account because they're not allowed to. But it's important for us as, and that's another issue. That's sort of a fight for another day, but I think it's really important that everybody sort of understand the constraints they're working under. But that doesn't make anyone here need to, not feel comfortable saying, this is our community is important to us. We want to protect it, but we want access to our waterfront. We want this other plan. Maybe you are very specific area, but we want a plan that protects, our friends and family who live all over the area.
Well,
So
it did seem when the plans came out that it was very sterile,
Mhm.
and like they didn't consider community, especially when you're putting a wall up between Hudson River Park and Manhattan. That community was not really even considered. I do have one question for you, Sally, if that's
Sure.
okay, by the
Yeah.
committee. You mentioned that, we have what we're going to say and we know what we're going to say or what we're opposed to, but this is our solution. I don't think our board is there yet. It's a very complicated plan. There's many or plans, plural. There are many layers. It could be mixed. I don't know if in our initial letter, we want to say, this is what we think should happen right now. I just don't know if we're prepared to say that.
Well, you might. So if as a group, that's the consensus, that it does seem from listening to everyone here that you guys do agree that you don't want the onshore wall, right? I mean, that does sound that way to me. So my really suggestion for the group letter would be at this point, and you guys, I mean, if you think about it or talk about it over the next few weeks, you have until March 7th. By the way, I'm also part of another coalition and with the Waterfront Alliance and RISE and a few other things that are really pushing that March 7th gets pushed back, because there has not been enough discussion. And, in many communities across the city that are being incredibly deeply impacted by this, communities that are being left out completely, communities that are also getting walls, but they haven't done their due diligence. The Army Corps, they're trying, but they haven't done it. I mean, there hasn't been bilingual outreach. There hasn't been very many meetings. Originally, I think they only had 5 meetings planned. They've been adding them, and they did extend the comment period.
They came to our
once.
community board.
Yeah.
They went, I mean, they're going when they're asked, but yes.
Yeah. They're trying to do that. So I would just suggest, we're opposed to the wall, and we want a solution that is not, actually physically on top of our waterfront. And just you could just leave it at that. You don't, like you said, you don't have to specifically say, but if there's a plan, like I said, Martin mentioned a plan that he's like, well, this could, protect us and isn't going to be right here and is deployable without, offshore and is not affecting us. By all means, feel free to do that. If the group doesn't want to do as a whole, people can do it individually. Because like I said, I really think it's very important for each of you. And when I send the template, it's going to be so easy. It'll take you 5 minutes to fill it in. Again, it's like Mad Libs, you could put that in there that, if you wanted to, but you don't have to do it as a group. Don't feel like that's limiting you in any way.
Thank you for your help, Marty.
I'm wondering, Sally, if your template has a list of stuff in it that if the committee had a longer discussion that we could get behind. You mentioned rain gardens as an example. And I think if we had a discussion about rain gardens, most of us would say, of course, that should be a mitigation feature that should be all over the place. That's just one example. So do you offer suggestions?
We do actually. We gave Eric Botcher's office yesterday information about elements of a layered defense system that, based on the scientists, engineers, and, physical oceanographers that, in their research. So we can send that to you and you guys take a look and see if any of it's of value to you, for sure.
That would be a very good thing for us to see.
Absolutely. So tomorrow we'll email you a bunch of different things for you to look at. And, and you can just reach back out if you need anything else, because we're here to support, in any way we can.
Thank you. And thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you for waiting, because that was.
Of course. And thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I think, like I said, guys, our initial, and we voted, I think our initial letter is gonna be pretty cursory, like, this is what we are against. And then all the other, I mean, listen, there's going to be so many layers and different elements that we will get later on, I think a little more in depth. Like what Marty just said. But I think if our initial letter is kind of like, bam. Roberta, do you want to say something or no?
Just a really brief request. Thank you so much, Sally, for everything, all the information you've shared. I don't know if Janine and Jesse would be able to just forward this to other members of the board. If the deadline winds up being March 7th, it might be helpful to let people know that they're able to make their own individual comments if they'd like to elaborate upon the board's letter. It's certainly not, we wouldn't want to encourage people to disagree with the board's comments. I don't think anyone would, but if people do have greater specificity that they'd like to add there, then, it might be valuable.
Janine, did you heard that? Janine, we can talk about that offline in a follow-up email with Jesse on how to get it out.
Sorry, could you say that again?
I think it was just more about how to, Sally was saying that not only do we have a CB4 letter, an official letter, but that individuals can also kind of reiterate CB4's position or their own position. And if we can just disseminate that information or that avenue of doing so, with maybe Sally's template that she mentioned would be helpful. But I said we could talk about that offline. To do
Maybe
so.
including a line like that in the letter itself.
Okay, yeah, we could also do like a small meeting together just to kind of go over everything what goes out.
Absolutely. And Sally said she was going to send you that template tomorrow, along with some of the other some other points of information that would be helpful for us down the line as well.
Okay, yep. Sally, if you don't have my email, you can find it on our website.
Janine, I connected you with Sally and Sam from Metro Flood Defense as well, just during this meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Thanks.
Of course.
Okay, guys, so I think we voted on it. I think it was unanimous. Again, Sally, thank you so much. That was actually a really important contribution.
Thank you.
I can't believe I'm saying this. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
No, let's just go home.
The motion.
Second. Great. Guys.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so
Great
much.
job, Leslie.
Thank you, Leslie. Good job.
Absolutely.
Good night.